There is a moment almost universal to every human being who has ever lived, when the eyes lift toward a clear night sky and something quiet shifts inside the chest. The stars seem close. The darkness between them seems thin. The cosmos appears to lean down toward the observer, as if the universe itself were listening. For thousands of years, this feeling has shaped religion, mythology, poetry, navigation, and science. It is one of the oldest emotional inheritances of our species. And yet, almost everything about that feeling is a beautiful, persuasive illusion. And if you want to keep following the discoveries that make the universe feel stranger the closer we look, subscribe to Beyond the Universe, and stay with us as this quiet darkness begins to reveal what the night sky has been hiding. The sky you see above you is not a portrait of the universe. It is a flattened impression of light, a thin projection painted across the inside of your perception. You are not looking at the cosmos. You are looking at a tiny, curated sample of it, filtered by atmosphere, distorted by distance, and arranged by the limits of your own eyes. If you have ever wondered why reality feels stranger the more closely you examine it, then continue forward with us here on Beyond the Universe, where every quiet discovery begins to reshape what you thought the night sky was. Because the truth is that the universe does not look the way it feels. It does not behave the way it appears, and the more carefully we measure it, the more its sense of fullness collapses into something colder, larger, and more silent than the human mind was ever built to hold. Begin with the simplest scene, a field at night. No city lights, no moon. You tilt your head back and the sky opens above you like a vault of dust and fire. Thousands of stars, maybe more. They appear scattered but somehow ordered. Some bright, some faint, some clustered into patterns the human mind has been naming for as long as it has had language. The Milky Way arcs across the sky like a river of pale smoke. The whole vision feels generous, almost crowded. It looks like a universe overflowing with itself. But that impression depends on something your senses cannot give you. You cannot see depth in the night sky. Every star, no matter how near or how impossibly far, is painted onto the same dark surface inside your perception. Two stars that appear to touch may be separated by gulfs so vast that light itself takes centuries to cross between them. The sky is not a layered scene. It is a collapsed one. Distance has been erased, and what remains is a flattened mosaic that hides the true geometry of everything above you. If you could restore that lost dimension, if you could pull each star back to its true position in three-dimensional space, the night sky would unravel before your eyes. The familiar constellations would dissolve, the clusters would scatter, the dense ribbons of light would pull apart into isolated points, drifting through enormous volumes of darkness. The crowded sky would reveal itself as something else entirely, a thin scattering of luminous specks suspended in an overwhelming, almost unbroken emptiness. This is the first quiet contradiction of the cosmos. The fullness you perceive is not a property of the universe. It is a property of your perspective. Move your viewpoint, and the illusion fails. Step outside the planet, outside the solar system, outside the local arm of the galaxy, and the night sky you grew up with would not exist. The patterns would be gone, the river of stars would fade, the comforting closeness would dissolve into a slow, cold dispersion of points adrift in distances that the imagination simply cannot grasp. Consider what it actually means for two stars to be neighbors. The nearest star to our sun is a small, dim companion in a triple system more than 4 light-years away. That number is easy to say and almost impossible to feel. Light, the fastest thing in the universe, leaves that star and travels uninterrupted for over 4 years before it arrives here. And in the entire stretch between those two stars, there is essentially nothing. No civilizations, no worlds anyone has confirmed as Earth-like. No dust thick enough to slow a spacecraft, only a long, dark, almost perfect vacuum, and those two stars are considered close. They are the kind of neighbors that cosmic cartographers describe as nearby, as local, as part of our immediate stellar neighborhood. If that distance is what counts as intimacy in the galaxy, then the galaxy itself is not crowded. It is hollow. It is mostly emptiness wrapped around occasional sparks. Imagine shrinking the sun to the size of a single grain of sand. On that scale, the next nearest grain of sand, the closest other star, would lie roughly 40 kilometers away. Between those two grains there is essentially nothing but distance. No grains in between, no structure, just a long, silent gap that dwarfs anything human transport has ever crossed. And our galaxy contains hundreds of billions of such grains, separated by similarly enormous voids, arranged in a slow rotation around a darker, heavier center. This is the first place where the illusion of fullness begins to crack. A galaxy is not a city of stars pressed together. It is a sparse archipelago of light spread across an ocean of vacuum so vast that the stars themselves seem incidental. Even in the densest regions of the Milky Way, the spaces between stars dwarf the stars by factors no human metaphor can honestly capture. And yet, when you look upward, the Milky Way still appears as a glowing band, dense and luminous, as if it were a solid structure. That glow is another trick of perception. You are seeing the combined light of countless distant stars compressed by the geometry of your line of sight. Each star in that pale ribbon is, in reality, separated from its neighbors by spans of darkness so enormous that traveling between them at the speed of any technology we know would consume civilizations. The Milky Way, then, is not a place. It is an idea draped over emptiness, a slow spiral of mostly nothing, sprinkled with the occasional burning point, all of it bound together by gravity into a shape that holds across hundreds of millions of years. It is beautiful, it is intricate, but it is, in the most literal sense, mostly absence. But it goes deeper, because even within a single solar system, the same hollowness reappears at smaller scales. Picture the sun again, not as a grain of sand this time, but at its true size. A vast sphere of plasma, 1,000,000 kilometers across, capable of swallowing more than 1,000,000 Earths. Now consider how far away its nearest planet sits, then the next, then the next. By the time you reach the outer planets, the sun is barely a bright disk in the sky. By the time you reach the edge of the planetary region, the sun has shrunk to something only marginally brighter than the brightest stars. And between those planets, there is almost nothing. A few drifting rocks, a scattering of dust, streams of charged particles flowing outward from the sun. But the space between worlds is not crowded with debris. It is not full of asteroids waiting to be dodged. It is overwhelmingly empty, a quiet vacuum punctuated by the rare presence of solid matter. Even our own home system, the only place where we know life exists, is built mostly out of distance. This is the rhythm that begins to emerge as you zoom outward through scale after scale. Atoms are mostly empty space around small, dense nuclei. Solar systems are mostly empty space around small, dense suns. Galaxies are mostly empty space around small, dense clusters of stars. The universe repeats the same pattern at every level, as if emptiness were not a side effect of reality but its primary material, as if matter were the rare exception and absence were the rule. And this leads to something more disturbing, because if you accept that each scale of the universe is mostly empty, then you must also accept that the total picture is not what your eyes have been telling you for your entire life. The night sky is not a window into a packed and crowded cosmos. It is a window into a thin, fragile sprinkle of light suspended in something far larger than light. The universe is not a city. It is not a forest. It is closer to a black ocean in which a few small lanterns drift, separated by distances that the lanterns themselves can never cross. Step further outward. Leave the sun behind entirely. Imagine yourself rising above the plane of the Milky Way, drifting until the spiral arms become visible beneath you, until the entire galaxy reveals itself as a luminous wheel turning slowly in the dark. From this vantage point, the galaxy looks immense, 100,000 light-years across. Hundreds of billions of stars, lanes of dust and gas, a bright central bulge, a thin glowing disk. It is one of the largest coherent structures in nature, and from above, it appears full, intricate, alive. But look beyond the edge. Look outward into the surrounding dark. There the illusion shifts again, because the Milky Way is not embedded in some greater field of stars stretching forever in all directions. It is embedded in emptiness, a vast volume of intergalactic space where matter is so thin that on average you might travel for unimaginable distances without encountering anything at all. The galaxy, for all its grandeur, is an island, and the sea around it is darker, larger, and stranger than anything inside it. The nearest large galaxy to our own, Andromeda, lies more than 2 million light-years away. That distance is not just a number, it is a measurement of silence. 2 million years of uninterrupted vacuum. 2 million years for light to crawl across the gap. And Andromeda is considered a close neighbor. It is part of what astronomers call the local group, a small gathering of galaxies bound by gravity, the modest cluster we belong to in the cosmic order. Beyond the local group, the gaps grow larger. Galaxies thin out. The space between them stretches into expanses where light may travel for tens of millions of years before reaching anything dense enough to call a structure. And still you have barely begun to leave home. The universe extends outward in directions and distances that dwarf any single galaxy, any single cluster, any single concept the human mind has ever evolved to handle. From far enough away, our galaxy would not look like a vast pinwheel of stars at all. It would look like a single dim smudge of light, a faint blur in a sea of other faint blurs, separated by gulfs of nothing. The thing you call home, the structure that contains every star you have ever seen with your unaided eyes, every constellation, every legend, every map, would shrink to a single quiet point in a darkness whose scale begins to feel less like geography and more like silence given shape. And here is where the first true unease begins to settle in, because the universe is not just large. Large is a word that human beings can handle. Large is mountains, oceans, continents, planets. The universe is something else. It is a scale at which the relationships between objects begin to dissolve, at which the idea of being near anything becomes almost meaningless, at which light itself, the fastest signal that nature permits, becomes too slow to maintain contact between most of the things that exist. There is a particular feeling that begins to arise when you understand this. It is not the awe of looking at a starry sky. It is the slow, quiet recognition that the awe itself was built on a misreading of the scene. The fullness you felt was a flattened image. The closeness you sensed was a perceptual trick. The universe was never the warm, populated theater you imagined when you were younger. It was always this: an immense, dark expanse, lightly decorated with distant points of fire, separated by silences that no journey could ever shorten in a single human lifetime, or in many lifetimes, stacked end to end. Even the speed of light, that ultimate cosmic absolute, begins to feel strangely inadequate at these scales. Light is fast enough to circle the Earth more than 7 times in a single second. It crosses from the sun to your face in about 8 minutes. But across the distances between stars, it crawls. Across the distances between galaxies, it limps. Across the distances between galaxy clusters, it becomes almost stationary against the immensity it is trying to cross. The universe is so large that even its fastest messenger struggles to keep up with it. This is why the night sky lies to you so gently. The eye is built for the surface of a planet, for the distances between trees and predators and prey, for the gentle scale of a creature evolved to hunt and gather under a single bright sun. It was never built to perceive depth across light years. It was never built to handle voids that would require millions of years of travel at impossible speeds to cross. So it does what any limited instrument does: it compresses, it flattens, it paints the unimaginable onto a smooth, dark dome above your head and lets you believe for a moment that you are looking at everything. But you are not looking at everything. You are looking at a thin foreground of nearby fires. The stars you can see with your unaided eyes are almost all part of our own galaxy, and almost all relatively close even within it. Outside of a handful of fuzzy patches that the trained eye can recognize as distant galaxies or nebulae, every point of light you have ever personally seen in the night sky belongs to a single galactic neighborhood. The rest of the universe is invisible to you, not because it is hidden, but because it is too far away for your eyes to register. The visible night sky, then, is not a portrait of the cosmos. It is a portrait of a backyard. A small glowing courtyard in a structure whose true dimensions extend far beyond anything your senses can reveal. And even that courtyard, even that quiet local sample of stars, is itself mostly emptiness, mostly vacuum, mostly the long, dark gaps between the few burning points. There is a strange kind of vertigo that comes with this realization. It is not the vertigo of falling, but of expanding. You begin to feel the room around you not as a sealed space, but as a thin membrane on the surface of a planet. That planet as a small sphere drifting around a single star. That star as one grain among hundreds of billions in a slowly turning disk. That disk as a single island in a sea of similar islands. That sea as a region of a structure so large that even light becomes almost useless as a measuring tool. And still, you have not left the local neighborhood. You have not yet crossed into the regions where galaxies themselves begin to thin out. You have not yet seen the cosmic web, or the great voids, or the vast architectures of absence that organize matter at the largest scales. You have only begun to understand that the sky above your head is not the universe. It is a small, beautiful misunderstanding. The most unsettling part is how natural it feels to believe the illusion. There is nothing wrong with your eyes. There is nothing wrong with your mind. You are not misperceiving anything in a way that matters for daily life. The illusion of a full, intimate, crowded cosmos is one of the most stable, repeatable, universal experiences a human being can have. And yet, when measured against the actual structure of the universe, it is wrong in every direction. It is wrong about distance. It is wrong about density. It is wrong about how matter is arranged. It is wrong about how much of reality is even visible. The first lesson the universe teaches, if you are willing to listen, is that your sense of the world has limits, and that those limits are not minor. They are not corrections that can be made with a better telescope or a sharper eye. They are structural. They are baked into the difference between the human scale and the cosmic scale. Bridging that difference is not a matter of looking harder. It is a matter of unlearning what looking gave you in the first place. So consider again the field at night, the sky above you, the constellations you can name, the faint river of the Milky Way. Feel for one last moment the old, generous illusion of a sky full of stars. Then let it loosen. Let the distances behind each point of light pull apart in your mind. Let the constellations dissolve into unrelated stars at wildly different depths. Let the Milky Way separate into its true, sparse population of suns scattered through enormous volumes of vacuum. Let the comforting dome lift away from above your head and reveal what was always behind it. What remains is not nothing. There are still stars. There are still galaxies. There is still structure. But the proportions have changed. What seemed like a sky full of fire becomes a sky lightly seeded with fire across an expanse that is mostly dark, mostly silent, mostly absent. And as you begin to accept that picture, the universe begins to feel less like a home and more like a setting, less like a place that was made for observers, and more like a place where observers happen to exist in tiny, scattered pockets, surrounded by far more emptiness than they were ever taught to imagine. Because the deeper you look, the more clearly you see that the cosmos is not built around its lights. It is built around the distances between them. The dark is not the background of the universe. It is the universe. The lights are the exception. And from this point forward, every step outward, every new scale, every new layer of the cosmic structure will only deepen that uncomfortable truth. The night sky is the beginning of the story, but it is not the story. And the further you travel from it, the stranger the real shape of reality becomes. Lift away from the planet now. Let the field beneath your feet shrink into a continent, the continent into a hemisphere, the hemisphere into a pale blue marble suspended in vacuum. Then keep rising. Let the earth fall away into the night until it is no larger than a coin held at arm's length, then smaller than a grain of dust, then gone. The sun follows. The other planets follow. The entire system that gave rise to every story human beings have ever told contracts into a single dim point against the slow turning wheel of the Milky Way. And then that wheel, too, begins to shrink. At a great enough distance, our galaxy becomes a small, soft glow, no more remarkable than 1,000 others scattered around it. From here, you can see something that no one standing on Earth has ever directly seen with their eyes. You can see other galaxies as they truly are, not as faint smudges that require long exposures and careful instruments to detect, but as full, separate islands of stars, each one a self-contained world of hundreds of billions of suns, each one drifting in its own pool of darkness, each one entirely unreachable by anything made of matter we currently understand. And the first thing that strikes you, from this imagined vantage point, is how rare they are. Galaxies do not crowd the sky. They do not press together like leaves on a tree or grains of sand on a beach. They float, separated by gulfs so wide that the eye, even if it could perceive them, would register the spaces between as the dominant feature of the view. The galaxies become punctuation marks in a sentence made almost entirely of silence. This is intergalactic space, and it is the emptiest, most dilute, most relentlessly vacant environment that physics has ever measured. Within a galaxy, however sparse, there is still gas, still dust, still occasional radiation streaming between stars. Step outside that galaxy, and even those thin presences fade. The density of matter in the deep space between galaxies is so low that for every few cubic meters you might find only a single atom, nothing else. A volume that on Earth would be filled with countless trillions of molecules of air, in intergalactic space contains essentially one quiet, drifting particle. If you could stand somewhere in the middle of that void, with nothing to anchor your sense of scale, you would not see the universe around you as anything resembling the night sky you grew up with. You would see only darkness in nearly every direction. A few faint smears of light perhaps where distant galaxies hovered at the edge of visibility. No stars to navigate by, no glowing band overhead, no sense of being inside anything at all. Just a darkness so complete that the word emptiness becomes almost too generous for it. And yet, this is not the deepest emptiness the universe contains. It is only the ordinary emptiness, the standard background condition of intergalactic space. There are places in the cosmos where even that thin scatter of distant galaxies fades, where the universe opens into regions of such immense vacancy that the very idea of structure begins to lose meaning. These regions have a name. They are called cosmic voids. And to understand them, you must first understand how galaxies are actually arranged on the largest scales. For most of human history, even after we accepted that the universe extended far beyond our own galaxy, it was natural to assume that galaxies were scattered more or less evenly through space. Some clusters here, some isolated galaxies there. A general spread, with statistical variation. It seemed reasonable. It seemed orderly. It even seemed comforting in a way, as if the universe were a vast but democratic distribution of light, with no region especially favored and no region especially abandoned. But as astronomers began to map the positions of galaxies on truly cosmic scales, surveying millions of them, measuring their distances, plotting their locations in 3 dimensions, something unexpected began to emerge. The galaxies were not spread evenly. They were not random. They were gathered. They followed lines. They clung to threads. They concentrated along curving structures that stretched across hundreds of millions of light years. And between those structures, there were enormous regions where galaxies were almost entirely absent. The universe, it turned out, was not a uniform fog. It was a web. Picture it, slowly. Imagine pulling back from any single galaxy until thousands of them come into view, then millions. As you do, patterns begin to resolve. Galaxies trace out long filaments, like slender bridges of light, each filament knotted with denser clusters where dozens or hundreds of galaxies gather. The filaments connect, they cross, they braid into nodes, into walls, into vast curving sheets of luminous matter. And surrounding all of this delicate architecture, occupying the bulk of the volume between the threads, are immense, almost perfectly empty rooms. Rooms larger than anything else in the universe. This is the cosmic web. It is the largest structure that nature has ever organized, and from a sufficient distance it looks beautiful. It looks like neural tissue, or river deltas, or frost spreading across a window. It looks like something almost designed, as if the universe had drawn a quiet diagram of itself in light. But the longer you look at this structure, the more clearly you begin to see what it is really showing you, because the beauty of the cosmic web is not a beauty of fullness. It is a beauty of contrast. Those luminous filaments only stand out because the regions between them are so empty. The web is striking precisely because the dark spaces dominate it. If you measured the volume of the universe occupied by galaxies, by clusters, by filaments, and compared it to the volume occupied by voids, the voids would win, easily and overwhelmingly. The cosmic web is not a structure of matter decorated by gaps. It is a structure of gaps faintly outlined by matter. And once you see it this way, the architecture of the universe begins to feel different, not generous, not abundant, but hollow, carefully, intricately hollow, as if the largest design in nature is not a celebration of presence, but a vast organization of absence. Look closer at the threads themselves. Each filament of the cosmic web can stretch for hundreds of millions of light years, threading through the dark like a slow vein of light. Along these threads, galaxies drift in great processions, drawn together by gravity, slowly migrating toward the denser nodes where clusters and superclusters accumulate. A galaxy cluster, the densest concentration in this hierarchy, can contain hundreds or even thousands of galaxies bound gravitationally to one another, swirling around a common center, embedded in a halo of hot gas and unseen mass. Beyond clusters lie superclusters, looser assemblies of clusters and groups linked along the filaments, sprawling across distances so vast that even light, traveling unhindered, would take hundreds of millions of years to cross from one end to the other. Our own galaxy belongs to one such network. The local group, our small family of galaxies, is part of a larger assembly that includes the Virgo cluster, which itself is part of a still larger structure that astronomers have begun to call Laniakea, a supercluster whose boundaries are defined not by what is inside it, but by the flow of galaxies being drawn toward a deeper gravitational basin within it. And yet, even Laniakea, vast as it is only one feature within the cosmic web. Around it, beyond it, between it and other superclusters, the voids open up. And these voids are not modest empty spaces. They are not gaps the size of galaxies. They are not even gaps the size of clusters. They are regions of the universe, tens or hundreds of millions of light years across, in which the density of galaxies drops to a small fraction of the cosmic average. They are the true bulk of reality, the dominant feature of the universe at the largest scales. And almost everything we mean when we say that the cosmos is mostly empty refers to them. One of the most famous of these voids was discovered in the direction of the constellation Boötes. It is sometimes called the Great Void, or simply the Boötes Void. It stretches roughly 300 million light-years across, and inside it, Only a small handful of galaxies have been found, scattered far apart from one another. To understand what that means, hold this thought carefully. A region of space large enough to contain tens of thousands of galaxies if filled at the normal cosmic density, and inside that region, you can count the known galaxies in dozens. The rest is silence. The rest is distance. The rest is one of the loneliest environments in existence. Try, if you can bear it, to imagine living in such a place. Imagine that the Milky Way had formed not along a bright filament of the cosmic web, but deep inside a void like this one. The night sky from such a world would not look like the sky you know. You would still see your own galaxy's stars, perhaps, the local fires that surround your own sun. But beyond the edge of your galaxy, the universe would appear almost dead. The nearest other galaxies might lie so far away that they would be undetectable, without instruments far more powerful than anything most observers would naturally invent. You could spend centuries, millennia, entire civilizations of patient looking, and conclude that your galaxy was alone, that it was the universe itself, that nothing existed beyond its edge. This is not a thought experiment without consequence. Civilizations that arise deep inside voids, if any do, would inherit a profoundly distorted view of reality. They would have no easy way of suspecting that beyond their vast empty surroundings, a cosmic web of galaxies stretches in every direction, woven through immense distances, filled with structures their telescopes would struggle to ever detect. Their cosmology would not just be incomplete, it would be quietly wrong, and they would have no easy way of knowing. But it gets worse, because even those of us who do not live in such a void are not immune to the same kind of distortion. We simply experience it on a different scale. We live in a relatively well-populated region of the cosmic web, near a busy node of the structure. From our vantage point, the universe looks rich, full of galaxies, full of clusters, full of evidence of structure. And yet, even from here, the dominant feature of the cosmos at the largest scales is still the voids. We see the web because we are inside one of its threads, but the bulk of what surrounds the web is emptiness. We are not in the middle of a packed universe. We are clinging to a thin strand of light strung across a much greater dark. The cosmic web reframes everything. It tells you that the universe does not place matter where it pleases. It places matter along very specific, very thin geometries. Most of the volume of reality has been left alone, untouched by significant structure, abandoned to a near-perfect vacuum. The galaxies are not the universe. They are a sparse decoration on the edges of something much larger and much emptier. And here, a deeper unease begins to take shape. Because if the cosmic web is the largest known structure, and if that structure is itself mostly empty, then the universe is not built around its objects. It is built around its absences. The voids are not the negative space of the cosmos. They are the cosmos. The filaments and clusters and galaxies are the negative space. They are the tracings left behind by the only places where matter happened to gather. The story of the universe, told honestly at the largest scales, is a story about emptiness with occasional interruptions of light. There is something deeply uncomfortable about this. It contradicts a quiet assumption that nearly every human culture has made about the cosmos. We tend to imagine the universe as a populated stage, even when we admit that it is mostly empty. We picture stars as common, galaxies as plentiful, structure as the dominant feature of reality. The cosmic web overturns that assumption, not by removing the stars and galaxies, but by placing them in their honest context. They are real, they are beautiful, they are also vanishingly rare against the volume that contains them, and the architecture extends in every direction. The web is not centered on us. It is not arranged around our galaxy or our cluster or our supercluster. No matter where you placed yourself in the universe, you would see a similar pattern. Filaments stretching past you, clusters glowing along them, voids opening between them. There is no privileged location, no central node, no special place where the universe gathers more densely for the benefit of observers. The structure is similar everywhere on average, and everywhere on average it is mostly empty. This breaks one of the oldest emotional intuitions about the cosmos. For most of human history, even after we accepted that the Earth was not the center of the solar system and the Sun was not the center of the galaxy, it still felt as if the universe might somehow be arranged with us in mind. Maybe not geometrically, maybe not literally, but somehow. The cosmic web takes that last intuition and quietly dissolves it. We are not at the center. We are not on the edge. We are on a strand, a small thread within a structure whose pattern repeats with indifferent regularity, across distances that have no center to speak of. And the voids that dominate this structure are not static, they are growing. As the universe expands, the empty regions stretch faster than the filaments, because there is less matter inside them to hold them back gravitationally. The cosmic web is being slowly pulled apart from the inside, the voids inflating like enormous bubbles, pressing the filaments into thinner and thinner shapes, pushing clusters further from one another. Emptiness, in the universe, is not just a state, it is a trend, it is a direction. The voids are winning. Think about that carefully. The dominant feature of the universe at the largest scales is becoming more dominant over time. The luminous structures are not consolidating into a denser cosmos. They are being stretched thinner and pushed further apart by the slow growth of the voids between them. The architecture of absence is expanding. The architecture of presence is being squeezed onto narrower and narrower threads. And this leads to something more disturbing. Because if the voids are growing and the filaments are thinning, then the future of the cosmic web is not a future of richness. It is a future of dilution. The structures that exist now, the clusters and superclusters that took billions of years to form, may eventually find themselves surrounded by ever-widening regions of emptiness, separated by gulfs that grow faster than gravity can pull anything back together. The web does not tighten over time. It loosens, it frays, it spreads. For now, the structure still holds. The filaments are still bright with galaxies. The clusters are still gathering matter. The local web around us is still recognizable as a web, but the underlying tendency is unmistakable. The universe is not condensing, it is dispersing, and the patterns that look so striking on our maps today are slowly being pulled towards something less defined, something more diluted, something closer to the dominant emptiness that surrounds them. Step back in your imagination to a viewpoint far above the cosmic web. Watch it for a long time, not seconds, not years, but cosmic timescales. Billions of years compressed into a slow visual unfolding. You would see the filaments shifting, the clusters drifting, the galaxies migrating along the threads. You would see the voids opening like slow bubbles, pressing outward, claiming more and more of the volume of the universe. You would see the web maintain its general pattern, but the contrast between bright threads and dark spaces would deepen. The threads would not get brighter, the dark spaces would get larger. The universe would slowly come to look less like a tapestry of light and more like a faint sketch of light fading on an enormous dark canvas. This is the cosmos as the largest measurements now describe it. A vast, mostly empty volume, organized into a thin, beautiful, fragile network of luminous structure that occupies only a small fraction of the total space. A pattern of presence drawn over a far larger pattern of absence. And the absence is not passive. It is active. It is expanding. It is rewriting the geometry of everything around it. There is a strange sensation that comes with holding this picture in the mind. It is not quite fear. It is closer to a kind of cosmic vertigo, a slow realization that the universe is not the warm setting you grew up imagining. It is something with its own preferences, its own tendencies, its own slow choices about how to distribute matter and how to push it apart. And those preferences, those tendencies, do not seem to favor density. They do not seem to favor closeness. They do not seem to favor the kind of gathered, populated cosmos that humans instinctively expect. The universe seems to prefer space, not space as a backdrop, space as a presence, space as the dominant ingredient, space as the medium that grows, that stretches, that opens new emptiness inside itself as time moves forward. And in this growing emptiness, the lights of the cosmos hold on as best they can, gathering along threads, clinging to one another in clusters, forming the bright outlines of a structure that exists primarily to define the dark. And yet, even now, even with all of this revealed, you have not seen the deepest layer, because the cosmic web itself, the filaments and clusters and shining structures you have just learned to see, is not made primarily from the matter that shines. The galaxies, the stars, the gas, the dust, all of the luminous material you would point to as the visible cosmos, accounts for only a small fraction of the mass involved in shaping the web. The threads that hold the galaxies in place, the gravitational scaffolding that defines where the bright matter can gather, is built from something else entirely, something that does not shine, something that does not announce itself, something that has remained, despite decades of searching, almost entirely hidden. The luminous universe, the universe you can see in any photograph from any telescope ever built, is only the surface of the structure. Beneath that surface lies a deeper architecture, invisible, silent, and far more massive than the lights that decorate it. The galaxies are not the framework of the cosmos. They are the ornaments hanging from it. The framework itself remains in the dark, and once you understand that, the night sky changes again. The faint river of the Milky Way, the scattered galaxies on long exposure images, the bright clusters threaded along the filaments of the cosmic web, all of it begins to look less like the substance of reality and more like a thin, glowing residue, clinging to the contours of something larger and stranger. The visible universe becomes a kind of frost on a window, hinting at the shape of a colder, deeper landscape on the other side of the glass. The web you have just learned to see is real, but it is not what holds itself together. Something else does. And to understand the universe as it actually is, you must now begin to look at the part of it that has never let itself be seen. The first hints came not from a desire to find anything hidden, but from a quiet contradiction in the way galaxies behaved. Astronomers, looking carefully at the rotation of spiral galaxies, expected to see a familiar pattern. Stars near the center, where most of the visible mass appeared concentrated, should orbit quickly. Stars further out, where the visible matter thinned into faint outer regions, should orbit more slowly, the way distant planets in a solar system move more lazily around their star than the inner ones. This was not a guess. It was a direct prediction of the same gravitational laws that had been tested and confirmed for centuries. But when the measurements came in, the prediction failed. The outer stars in spiral galaxies were not moving slowly. They were moving almost as fast as the inner stars. The rotation curves, instead of falling off gracefully at the edges, stayed stubbornly flat, as if some unseen mass extended far beyond the visible disk of the galaxy, pulling the outer regions along with a gravity that the eyes could not locate. Galaxies were behaving as though they were embedded in something larger than themselves, something that did not glow, something that did not absorb light, something whose only signature was its weight. The same anomaly appeared in galaxy clusters. The galaxies within a cluster moved too quickly relative to one another to be held together by the gravity of the visible matter alone. By every reasonable calculation, the clusters should have been flying apart. They were not. They were holding, bound by something, surrounded, or perhaps permeated, by a mass that revealed itself only through its gravitational influence and through nothing else. From these contradictions, a single, unsettling conclusion began to take shape. Most of the matter in the universe was not the kind of matter we knew. It was not made of atoms in any familiar configuration. It did not emit light. It did not reflect light. It did not even absorb light in any easily detectable way. It passed through telescopes and detectors as if they were not there. And yet, on the scale of galaxies and clusters, its gravity dominated everything. This invisible substance, whatever it turned out to be, was given a name that admitted its mystery rather than disguising it. Dark matter. The name is not an explanation. It is a placeholder. It marks the place in our understanding where something exists, something with mass, something that helps shape the universe, but whose identity remains stubbornly out of reach. Decades of searching, in deep underground laboratories, in particle accelerators, in careful astronomical observations, have narrowed the possibilities, ruled out many candidates, refined the constraints, but the substance itself has never been caught in a detector. It has never been isolated, weighed, photographed, or directly handled. It is known only through what it does, never through what it is, and what it does is enormous. Dark matter is the gravitational scaffolding around which the cosmic web has assembled itself. In the early universe, long before galaxies existed, slight variations in the density of dark matter created subtle gravitational wells, soft depressions in the fabric of space where ordinary matter could collect. Hydrogen and helium gas flowed quietly into these wells, gathering, compressing, igniting into the first stars, eventually shaping themselves into the first galaxies. The bright structures of the universe formed where dark matter had already prepared the ground for them. The filaments of the cosmic web, the bright threads you have just learned to recognize, are the visible echo of an underlying network of dark matter that stretches between and beyond them. Imagine the luminous web as a glowing trace following the outline of a deeper, larger, mostly invisible web. Most of the gravitational mass involved in shaping galaxies and clusters lies in this dark framework. The luminous matter, the stars and gas and dust we can detect, is only a thin coating of light decorating the contours of something that does not shine. Try to feel what this means. When you look at an image of a galaxy, you are not looking at the galaxy. You are looking at the part of the galaxy that happens to emit light. Around that bright disk extends a vast halo of dark matter, often many times more massive than the visible component, reaching far beyond the edges of the stellar regions. The galaxy you see is the small bright center of a much larger, mostly invisible object. The cosmic photograph is honest, but it is also misleading. What is visible is only the surface of something whose true extent lies in the dark, and the same is true at every scale. Clusters of galaxies are embedded in enormous halos of dark matter. The filaments of the cosmic web are threaded through long, mostly invisible ridges of dark matter. The voids, though they remain emptier than the rest, are not perfectly empty even of dark matter. The entire architecture of the universe is shaped by this unseen substance, and the visible objects we love and photograph are only the brighter highlights of its silent design. There is something deeply uncomfortable about this picture. It suggests that what humans have always taken as the universe, the luminous cosmos of stars and galaxies, is in fact a minority component of reality. The dominant matter is something we cannot see, something we do not yet fully understand, something that builds the very structures we live within without ever revealing itself. The night sky, for all its beauty, is the surface of a much deeper, darker landscape. The lights have been telling us only a partial story, and the proportions are striking. When astronomers add up the mass-energy budget of the universe, the matter we know, the protons and neutrons and electrons that make up stars, planets, gas, dust, and every living body, accounts for only a small percentage of the total. Dark matter accounts for a much larger share, and the rest, the largest portion of all, is something even stranger than dark matter, something whose influence is felt not in the gathering of structure, but in the stretching of space itself, something whose discovery, in many ways, was the most unsettling result in modern cosmology. To approach it, you have to go back to a question that seemed almost settled. The universe is expanding. This has been understood for nearly a century. Galaxies, on average, are moving away from one another, not because they are flying through space toward different destinations, but because the space between them is itself growing. The further away a galaxy is, the faster it appears to recede, because more space lies between it and us, and all of that space is expanding. For decades, the natural expectation was that this expansion would slow down over time. Matter, gathered into galaxies and clusters in the cosmic web, exerts gravity. Gravity pulls things together. Even on cosmic scales, it was assumed that the combined gravitational attraction of all the matter in the universe would gradually act as a brake on the expansion, slowing it, perhaps eventually stopping it, perhaps even reversing it into a future collapse. The only real question seemed to be how strong the braking would be, and what fate it would lead to. Then, in the late 20th century, careful measurements of distant supernovae began to overturn that expectation. By using a particular kind of stellar explosion as a cosmic distance marker, astronomers could compare how far away certain galaxies were with how fast they appeared to be receding. The results, checked and rechecked by independent teams, did not show a universe whose expansion was slowing. They showed a universe whose expansion was speeding up. The acceleration was small in any given moment, but unmistakable across cosmic distances. The further back in time astronomers looked, the more clearly they saw that the expansion had once been slower, and that it had been quietly gaining pace over billions of years. Something was pushing the universe apart, working against gravity, working against the natural tendency of matter to pull together. Whatever it was, it permeated space itself, and it was winning. The name given to this something is dark energy, and once again the name is not an explanation. It is a label placed across a mystery. We know almost nothing about what dark energy is. We do not know whether it is a property of empty space, a constant background pressure built into the fabric of the universe, or whether it is a slowly changing field, or something stranger that has not yet been guessed. What we know is what it does. It accelerates the expansion of the universe. It increases the distances between things that are not held together by gravity, and it appears to make up the largest single component of the cosmic energy budget. Think about that carefully. The dominant component of the universe is not matter we can see. It is not even matter we cannot see. It is something that may not be matter at all. It is a property or a presence or a phenomenon whose only known role is to stretch space itself faster and faster, with no sign of stopping. There is a difference between galaxies moving through space and space itself expanding, and that difference matters here. If galaxies were simply flying outward through a fixed stage, you could imagine them eventually slowing, running out of momentum, or being pulled back. But space is not a stage. It is part of the system. When new space appears between galaxies, the galaxies are not moving in any local sense. They are sitting quietly in their own neighborhoods. It is the distance between them that grows as if the ground under the universe were slowly stretching in every direction, and dark energy is causing that stretching to accelerate. Imagine a sheet pulled gently outward from every edge at once, with the pull becoming gradually stronger over time. The points painted on the sheet do not move across it. The sheet itself enlarges, carrying them apart. Now picture that same process happening in 3 dimensions, throughout the entire volume of the cosmos. on scales so large that you can only feel its effects between galaxies far enough apart that no local gravity binds them. Within bound systems, gravity still wins. The Earth is not expanding. The Sun is not expanding. The Milky Way is not expanding. The local group of galaxies is held together by mutual gravity strongly enough to resist the cosmic stretch. But beyond such bound systems, on the scale of clusters separated by tens or hundreds of millions of light years, the influence of dark energy becomes decisive. The space between them grows, and as it grows, dark energy grows with it, because more space means more of whatever produces this effect. And this leads to something more disturbing, because if dark energy continues to behave the way current measurements suggest, the acceleration will not stop. It will not reverse. It will not gently fade. It will continue and may even strengthen, carrying galaxies that are not gravitationally tied to us further and further away, faster and faster, across distances whose growth will eventually outpace the ability of light to bridge them. There is a horizon implied in this picture, not a horizon of mountains or oceans, but a cosmic horizon, a boundary beyond which signals from distant regions of the universe can no longer reach us. No matter how patiently we wait, this boundary is not set by the size of our telescopes. It is not a matter of needing better instruments. It is built into the structure of space-time itself. The universe is expanding in such a way that, beyond a certain distance, the space between us and any object grows faster than light can cross it. Light leaves those distant regions and tries to travel toward us, but the space ahead of it stretches faster than it can advance. The signal will never arrive. Try to hold that image, somewhere out there, in directions you cannot point to with confidence. There are galaxies whose light is forever beyond reach, not hidden, not occluded, not dimmed by dust, simply unreachable, because the expansion of the universe between us and them is faster than the speed at which their light can chase us. The cosmos is not just large, it is partitioned. There are regions of it that, in a very real sense, no longer share a future with us, and the boundary is not fixed. Over time, more and more of the universe slips outside it. As expansion accelerates the cosmic horizon, the edge of what we can ever observe draws closer in terms of how much of the universe lies inside it. Galaxies that today shine faintly at the edge of detectability will, in the deep future, be carried beyond that edge entirely. Their light, already stretched by the expansion of space into longer and longer wavelengths, will redshift further and further, growing dimmer, cooler, more diffuse, until it fades below any threshold of detection. They will not vanish in a dramatic moment. They will fade, slowly, like distant lanterns receding into a fog that thickens with every passing eon. You can feel, faintly, what this means for an observer. Stand in your imagination on a planet far in the future, orbiting a quiet star in a galaxy that has merged with its neighbors after billions of years of slow gravitational dance. Look up at the night sky from that world. You will not see the cosmos we see today, the familiar smear of distant galaxies, the faint dustings of unimaginably remote light. The deep field images that our telescopes can now reveal will all be gone, not destroyed, simply unreachable, carried beyond the horizon by the accelerating expansion of the universe. From that future world, the sky might appear simpler than it does to us. Stars within the local merged galaxy would still shine. The merged galaxy itself, the descendant of our local group, would still form a bright, intricate structure of stars and gas, but beyond it, there would be little to see. No filaments stretching toward distant clusters, no dim galaxies sprinkled in deep fields. The visible universe for those future observers would consist of their own island of light and almost nothing else. And here is where the deepest unease enters the picture, because those future observers, if any exist, would not necessarily know what they had lost. They would look up at a sky that contained one large galaxy and the local stars within it. They would build telescopes. They would measure carefully. They would try to understand the universe from the evidence available to them, and they might conclude, reasonably, based on what they could see, that their galaxy was the universe, that it was alone, that nothing else existed beyond its edge. They would not see the cosmic web. They would not see the voids. They would not see the distant clusters. They would not see the faint, ancient glow of the early universe that, in our era, fills the entire sky with a residual warmth from the first moments of expansion. By that future epoch, that ancient glow will have stretched and cooled so much that it may slip below their ability to detect it. The history of the universe will be hidden from them, not by malice, not by accident, by the slow, patient work of accelerating expansion. We live, in some sense, in a privileged era. Not because the universe was made for us, but because we exist at a time when its history is still partly visible. We can still see distant galaxies. We can still measure the residual glow of the early cosmos. We can still trace the cosmic web across enormous distances. We have inherited a sky that contains evidence of what the universe is and how it has changed. The future will not have that. The future will inherit a sky that hides the truth, a sky in which the universe has, in effect, erased its own deep past from view. The galaxies will still exist somewhere out there, of course. The voids will still yawn. The cosmic web will still hold whatever shape gravity and expansion have left it in, but none of it will be reachable. None of it will be observable. The universe will have become an enormous, almost entirely invisible structure surrounding a small island of light that no longer suspects what surrounds it. And we are not exempt from this trajectory. We are simply at an earlier point along it. Already there are regions of the universe whose light has not yet reached us and never will, because the expansion has carried them beyond our horizon. Already the most distant galaxies we observe are redshifted so heavily that their light has stretched into wavelengths far longer than the original colors in which they shone. Their light arrives exhausted, drained, stretched almost beyond recognition by the cosmic distance it has crossed, and the process continues. Slowly, on timescales no human civilization will likely witness in any single lifetime, the galaxies we can still see today are drifting toward the same fate. Their light, stretched further with every passing eon, will eventually fade beyond our ability to detect. The cosmic horizon will pull inward in terms of what lies within it. The observable universe will not grow richer with time. It will grow lonelier. There is a particular kind of grief that attaches to this realization. It is not the grief of personal loss. It is something larger, slower, more impersonal. It is the recognition that the universe is not a fixed gallery whose contents can be inspected at leisure by any sufficiently curious civilization. It is a fading exhibition whose most distant works are being quietly removed from view by the geometry of spacetime itself. To know the universe in any deep sense, you have to look now. The view will not stay this rich, and it goes deeper, because the same expansion that takes the distant galaxies from us is also, on the longest timescales, threatening to isolate even the structures we hold most dear. Our own local group, currently a small gathering of galaxies bound by mutual gravity, will probably hold together. Gravity is strong enough at that scale to resist the cosmic stretch. The Milky Way and Andromeda, drifting toward one another, will eventually merge into a single larger galaxy. Smaller companions will fall in one by one. The local group will simplify into a single, vast, merged stellar system. But beyond that island, the universe will be receding. The other groups and clusters that currently appear nearby in cosmic terms will drift outward, carried by the expanding space between us. The Virgo cluster, the wider supercluster, the network of structures around us, will not remain accessible. Over enormous spans of time, they too will redshift, dim, and slip toward the horizon. The local group, our merged future galaxy, will become an island in a far more profound sense than it is now. Not just an island in a sea of galaxies, but an island in a sea that no longer contains visible shores. And the inhabitants of that future merged galaxy, if any exist, will look up at a sky in which their own stars are essentially the entire visible universe. Their cosmology, however careful, will be based on a vastly impoverished sample of reality. They will not be lying to themselves. They will be doing the best science they can with what they can see. But what they can see will have shrunk dramatically. The universe will have become for them a private chamber rather than a vast cosmos, a single luminous structure suspended in an unfathomable darkness, whose true size and history will be hidden behind a horizon they cannot cross. You begin to sense by now that dark energy is not simply one more cosmic phenomenon. It is the deciding force of the long-term future. Dark matter shapes how structures form. Ordinary matter lights them up. But dark energy decides how those structures evolve over the deepest spans of time. It decides what remains observable. It decides what is reachable. It decides whether the universe stays a connected whole, or whether it fragments into ever more isolated regions, each one effectively a small cosmos unto itself, and the evidence so far suggests it has chosen separation. The expansion is not slowing, it is accelerating. The voids are growing, the horizons are tightening, the signals from distant galaxies are stretching toward silence. The architecture of presence is being thinned by the architecture of absence. The cosmic web, beautiful and intricate as it is being pulled toward a future in which its threads are no longer visible to anyone living along them. The universe, in other words, is not just empty. It is actively producing more emptiness between the things it contains. and the things it contains for all their light are being slowly, patiently, irreversibly isolated from one another. To understand what isolation truly means on a cosmic scale, you have to slow your sense of time. Human time is built around heartbeats and seasons, days and lifetimes, centuries at the longest stretch of comfortable thought. The processes that shape the long future of the universe operate on a different clock entirely. Their slowness is so deep that even the age of the universe so far, those nearly 14 billion years that contain every star that has ever shone, and every civilization that may have ever risen, becomes only a brief opening chapter. The story that follows extends across spans of time so vast that the numbers themselves stop conveying anything. You have to learn to feel them through their consequences rather than through their digits. So picture the universe not as it is now, but as it will be. Not in a million years, not in a billion, but in a trillion years, 10 trillion, 100 trillion, and onward into stretches of time where the numbers lose all friction. In those distant epochs, the universe will not look like a sky you would recognize. The familiar features of our era will have already faded. The deep field photographs that astonish us today will describe a cosmos that no longer exists in any observable form. The structures that defined our cosmic neighborhood will have rearranged themselves into something quieter, simpler, and far more alone. The first long process to follow is the slow exhaustion of star formation. Stars are not eternal. They are temporary structures, dense pockets of gas ignited by gravity into nuclear furnaces. They burn through their fuel at rates determined by their mass, and when the fuel is gone, they die in ways that range from a gentle fade into a slowly cooling ember to a violent collapse into a remnant of compressed matter or a black hole. The universe has been making stars for billions of years, and it is still making them now. But the rate at which new stars form has already been declining for a long time. The peak of cosmic star formation lies in the past. We live, in some sense, after the brightest era of the cosmos. As galaxies use up their available gas, as the cool reservoirs of hydrogen that fuel new stars are consumed or scattered, the production of fresh stars will slow further. Some galaxies will run out of usable fuel entirely. Star formation will become rarer, then exceptional, then almost absent. New stars will stop being born across most of the universe long before the old ones finish dying. The light shows that punctuate the cosmos today, the bright nurseries glowing in pink and blue across the spiral arms, the dramatic births in dense clouds of gas will become memories baked into the older generations of stars that still happen to burn. Meanwhile, the stars that already exist will continue along their own timetables. The most massive stars, the brightest and shortest lived, will burn out first, ending in supernovae or collapsing into compact remnants. The medium-sized stars, the kind that includes our own sun, will live longer, expanding into red giants, shedding their outer layers, leaving behind small, dense cores called white dwarfs that slowly cool through the dark. The smallest stars, the faint red dwarfs that are by far the most common in the universe, will outlast everything else, glowing weakly for trillions of years, sipping their fuel so slowly that they outlive every other kind of star by enormous margins. But even they will not last forever. One by one, even the red dwarfs will exhaust their hydrogen. They will not explode. They will not even brighten dramatically. They will simply quiet down, fade, and leave behind their own cooling remnants. And once the last red dwarf has gone dim, no new stars will replace it. The universe will have moved past the era in which stars were a defining feature of its appearance. The cosmos will still contain structure, but the lights will be going out. Imagine looking up at a galaxy in this far future. Not in our era, where bright stars and clouds of gas decorate every part of the disk, but trillions of years from now, when the once vibrant spiral has aged into something dimmer and quieter. The big blue stars are long gone. The yellow stars like our sun have faded into white dwarfs. The red dwarfs that remain are sparse and faint, their light barely sufficient to illuminate the neighborhoods around them. Between them drift the dark remnants of generations of dead stars, white dwarfs cooling toward black, neutron stars spinning silently, stellar mass black holes lurking in the dark. The galaxy still exists, but it is more like a vast graveyard than a city of light. And the galaxy itself is no longer alone in a vibrant cosmic neighborhood. By this point, the merger of our local galaxies has long since completed. The Milky Way and Andromeda have spiraled into one another, the smaller companions have fallen in, and what remains is a single elliptical-shaped galaxy, a smooth assembly of aging stars and remnants drifting in slow orbits around a common center. There are no nearby galaxies to look at from such a place. The horizon has done its work. The rest of the universe, if it can be detected at all, will be detectable only as the faintest signals at the very edge of physics. This is the long evening of stars. It is not a single moment. It is an era that stretches across trillions of years, during which the universe slowly transitions from a place defined by burning to a place defined by remnants. And as the lights go out, the contrast between the still visible structures and the surrounding emptiness deepens. The voids continue to grow. The expansion continues to stretch. The galaxies that are still bright become more isolated against a darker and darker background. But it gets worse, because the dimming of stars is only the first phase of the universe's long decline. Beyond the era of starlight lies a stranger, colder epoch, dominated not by the gradual fading of stars but by the slow physics of matter itself. The remnants left behind by dead stars will not remain static. Over timescale so long that even our cosmic eye begins to lose focus, even matter may begin to come quietly undone. One possibility, still uncertain, is that protons themselves may be unstable on truly enormous timescales. Some theoretical frameworks suggest that the particles that make up ordinary matter, the building blocks of every atom in every star and planet and body that has ever existed, may slowly decay into lighter particles given enough time. Whether this happens at all is not known. Experiments have placed enormous lower limits on the proton's lifetime, but a confirmed decay has never been observed. The idea remains speculative. It is not a fact about the universe. It is a possibility that some models leave open. But if it is true, then on timescales unimaginably longer than the current age of the universe, the bodies of dead stars, the cooled white dwarfs, the silent neutron stars, the orphan planets drifting in the dark, would slowly evaporate at the atomic level. Their matter would unwind itself into a thin spray of lighter particles and radiation. Galaxies that today consist of recognizable stars and remnants would, in this very deep future, gradually convert into a diffuse mist of more fundamental components. The familiar architecture of matter would dissolve, not in violence, but in patient erosion. Whether or not protons decay, however, the long future of the universe contains another set of objects that will outlast almost everything else: black holes. They are not the cinematic monsters that popular imagination tends to make of them. They are quiet, they are patient, they are simply regions where gravity has won so completely that not even light can leave, and on the longest scales, they become the most enduring large structures in the universe. Stellar mass black holes formed from the collapse of massive stars will drift through their host galaxies for unimaginable lengths of time, occasionally interacting with passing matter, occasionally swallowing whatever falls too close. The supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxies, already millions or billions of times the mass of the Sun, will continue to accrete what little material is left, growing slowly. Over time, as galaxies dim and remnants accumulate, black holes will become the dominant gravitational features of their galaxies, surrounded by aging stellar corpses orbiting in the dark. There will come an era, deep in the future, when the universe is best described not as a place of stars but as a place of black holes. The starlight that defined our era will have faded into ember and remnant. The voids will have widened almost beyond comprehension. The horizons will have tightened around the last visible structures, and within each isolated island of matter, the central black hole will reign as the slowest, heaviest, most enduring object in its domain. And yet, even black holes are not eternal. This was one of the most quietly devastating discoveries in modern physics. For most of scientific history, it was assumed that black holes were perfect one-way doors. Whatever fell into them was gone forever, and their mass could only ever grow. But careful theoretical work revealed something subtler. Near the boundary of a black hole, in the strange interface between gravity and the quantum nature of empty space, a faint trickle of radiation can escape. The black hole loses very slowly a tiny amount of its energy. Over time, this loss accumulates. The black hole shrinks, and eventually, given enough time, it disappears. This radiation is called Hawking radiation, after the physicist who first described it. It is not a dramatic, visible glow. For black holes of stellar mass or larger, it is so faint that it is utterly negligible against the background of the universe. The black hole loses energy at a rate so slow that it takes spans of time vastly longer than the current age of the cosmos to make any meaningful dent in its mass. For a black hole the size of those formed by collapsing stars, the time required for complete evaporation extends into numbers that have no intuitive meaning. We can write them down, we cannot really feel them, but time, in this far future, is no longer scarce. The universe, in its long decline, has nothing, if not time, and so the black holes, slowly, patiently, will radiate themselves away. Smaller black holes will evaporate first. Larger ones will take longer. The supermassive black holes at the centers of long-dead galaxies will be among the last objects to go, releasing their accumulated mass back into the cosmos as a barely perceptible glow over spans of time, so enormous that even in the long history of the universe they are exceptional. Picture it if you can. A black hole, once formed from the violent collapse of a massive star, surrounded by the orbiting remnants of an aged galaxy, in a region of space now far beyond the horizon of any other surviving structure. The universe around it is essentially silent. The expansion has carried everything else beyond reach. The galaxy itself has dimmed almost to nothing, and the black hole, the last great feature of this lonely island, glows so faintly that nothing could detect it. Over an unimaginable stretch of time it shrinks, its mass decreases. Its radiation, never bright, becomes slightly less faint as the black hole grows smaller. Eventually, after lengths of time that defy any human reference, the black hole reaches the end of its evaporation. In its final moments it brightens briefly, releases the last of its energy, and is gone. And after it is gone, what remains? Almost nothing. A thin scattering of particles drifting through a volume of space whose dimensions have grown beyond meaningful description. Photons, stretched by the continuing expansion of the universe into wavelengths so long that they carry almost no energy. Perhaps a few stable particles isolated in vast distances, never interacting with anything else for spans of time longer than the entire previous history of the cosmos. The structures are gone, the lights are gone, the black holes are gone. What is left is the universe in its most diluted, most exhausted, most quietly empty state. This is the dark era. It is not a violent ending. It is not a collapse. It is not a final burst of activity. It is the long, slow exhaustion of every meaningful difference. Every gradient that once allowed energy to flow and structures to form. Stars require differences in temperature and density. Galaxies require differences in mass distribution. Life requires differences in chemical potentials. All of these differences slowly fade as the universe evolves toward a state of maximum dispersion, in which energy is spread so thinly that no useful work can be extracted from it anywhere. Physicists describe this fate with a single, heavy phrase: the heat death of the universe. The name is somewhat misleading. There is no heat in any familiar sense at this stage. The temperature of the universe, in any region where temperature can still be defined, will have dropped to almost nothing, approaching absolute zero across enormous volumes. What the phrase actually means is that the usable energy has been exhausted. Energy still exists. It always does. Energy is conserved, but it has been spread out so evenly, so thinly, across such vast distances that no flow remains. No engine could run, no fire could burn, no structure could form. The universe is still there. It is simply at rest in a way that allows nothing further to happen. This is what entropy looks like at the cosmic scale. Not destruction, not annihilation, just exhaustion. The smoothing out of every contrast, the leveling of every gradient, the patient erasure of the differences that once allowed something to happen instead of nothing. The universe does not collapse. It does not explode. It simply runs down, like a clockwork that has been wound for the last time and is now turning more and more slowly toward a stillness from which no further motion will emerge, and the universe, in this final state, would be almost unrecognizable. There would be no galaxies because their stars would be long dead and their remnants long evaporated. There would be no clusters because the structures that defined them would have come apart at the level of matter itself. There would be no cosmic web because the threads of matter that once outlined it would have dispersed. There would be only space, vast and stretched, occupied here and there by lone particles drifting at enormous distances from any other particle, each one effectively alone in a volume so large that it might as well be the entire universe. And the space between them would continue to grow. Dark energy, the same patient force that began its work in our era, would not have stopped. If it continues to behave the way current models describe, the expansion of the universe will go on indefinitely. The distances between the few remaining particles will continue to increase. The cosmos will not freeze into a final, fixed configuration. It will keep expanding into more and more emptiness, even when there is almost nothing left inside it to push apart. Try to feel that, if you can. A universe in which space itself keeps growing, while the contents of that space become more dilute, more separated, and more inert with every passing eon. A universe in which the dominant story is no longer the formation of structures, but the indefinite extension of the void between them. A universe whose entire history of stars, galaxies, civilizations, and luminous architecture, occupies only a brief opening chapter, after which everything that follows is silence stretched across distances that no longer have any meaningful end. And here, the full weight of the picture begins to settle. The universe did not begin as silent. It began hot, dense, energetic, full of potential. It built galaxies. It built stars. It built planets. It built somewhere on at least one small world the conditions for life. It built minds that could look at themselves and at the sky and ask what it all meant. That entire achievement, every nebula, every star cluster, every galaxy, every civilization that may have risen and fallen on any world, is part of a brief flowering in the early life of the cosmos. The rest of cosmic history, by current understanding, will be quieter, darker, emptier, and far longer than everything that has happened so far. We exist, then, not in the middle of a long, stable cosmic story, but in its early, luminous phase. We are not the audience for the universe at its most representative moment. We are observers in the moment when it is still bright, still structured, still full of the kind of variety and energy that allows minds to form and questions to be asked. That moment will not last. Not in any future close to ours, but in the long arc of cosmic time. The bright universe is a transient configuration. The dark universe is the eventual norm. And the journey from one to the other is not an event. It is a direction. The voids are growing now. The expansion is accelerating now. The horizons are tightening now. The stars are aging now. Galaxies are slowly losing fuel now. The trajectory is already in motion. We do not have to wait until the final dark era to feel its influence. Every dimmed quasar at the edge of the observable universe, every red-shifted galaxy fading from view, every cosmic measurement that confirms the acceleration of expansion, is part of the same long slope downward toward dispersion. The universe is not stable. It is not eternal in any meaningful sense beyond the merely conceptual. It is a vast process moving on its own slow clock toward a state in which almost nothing of its current grandeur will remain. The night sky you can still see, the cosmic web you have just learned to imagine, the galaxies and clusters and superclusters that decorate the deep field images of our best telescopes. All of it is part of a configuration that the universe is gradually undoing. There is something profoundly strange about being conscious of this. For most of human history, the cosmos was assumed to be effectively permanent. The stars were thought to be eternal. The night sky was thought to be unchanging. The structure of the heavens was treated as a fixed setting for the brief, dramatic story of human life. Modern cosmology has overturned that assumption completely. The cosmos is not a fixed setting. It is itself a story. And the story has a direction, and the direction is not toward more brightness, more structure, more presence. It is toward more emptiness, more separation, more silence. The universe is not building itself up. It is, in the largest sense, taking itself apart, slowly, patiently, across spans of time that dwarf every other timescale in nature. But unmistakably, every measurement we make confirms that the long arc bends toward dilution, toward dispersion, toward the indifferent quiet of a cosmos whose useful energy has been spent. And the strangest part is how peaceful this process appears when seen from outside any single life. There is no agent making it happen. There is no malevolence. There is no decision. The universe is simply unfolding according to the physics built into it. The expansion is a property of space-time. Entropy is a statistical inevitability. Black holes evaporate because of the quantum nature of empty space near their boundaries. None of it is aimed at anything. None of it is personal. It is the universe being what it is, doing what it does, on a timescale that makes every human concern almost invisibly small. But there is something within that vast indifference that is hard to look at directly, because if the universe is heading toward this state, then almost everything we have ever cared about is, in cosmic terms, temporary. Not just human civilizations, not just biological life, but stars themselves, galaxies themselves. The very structures that make a cosmos recognizable as a cosmos. They are all temporary configurations within a much larger process that will eventually leave them behind. The universe is not arranged around us. It is not arranged around any observer. It is not arranged around its own current beauty. It is a system playing out its own physics across spans of time that the human mind is barely equipped to handle. And the direction it is moving in is one in which the rich, structured cosmos of our era becomes one of its briefer chapters, replaced over the long run by a state of dispersed silence, whose dimensions stretch beyond every measure. And yet, knowing this, you still cannot quite stop yourself from looking up. There is something in the human nervous system that, even after every contradiction has been absorbed, returns again to the sky. The eyes lift, the breath slows. The mind, briefly, attempts to take in something it cannot quite hold. This reflex is older than astronomy, older than any cosmology, older than any name we have ever given the constellations. It belongs to the part of us that evolved to look outward, to read the world, to gather information from light. It has no defense against what light reveals when light has had enough time to travel. Light, more than anything else, is what binds the picture together. Light is what allowed us to discover the distances between stars. Light is what allowed us to map the galaxies. Light is what carried the first evidence of accelerating expansion across billions of years of intergalactic vacuum and into a small detector on a small planet for a brief instant of analysis. Every conclusion in cosmology, every fact about the universe at large, has reached us as light. And light is also what is slowly leaving us. As the expansion stretches its wavelengths, as the horizon tightens, as the galaxies drift outward, the long signal that connects us to the rest of the cosmos is fading. Light is both the means by which we learn the universe and the medium through which the universe is slowly withdrawing from observation. Hold that idea for a moment. The same light that carries the truth of the cosmos to us is the same light that will eventually stop arriving. There is no other messenger. There is no faster signal. There is no deeper channel. Light is the only line of contact we have with the universe beyond our own bound systems, and that line is being drawn out, thinned, stretched, and finally cut by the geometry of space-time itself. We are not losing access to the cosmos through ignorance. We are losing it through physics, and it is worth pausing here to feel something quietly precise. The universe is not hiding. It is not concealing itself in any active sense. It is simply behaving according to its nature, and its nature involves expansion, horizons, entropy, and dispersion. It owes us no continued visibility. It owes us no permanent richness of structure. It owes us nothing at all. What we have because we exist at a moment in cosmic history when the universe still happens to be observable in a relatively detailed way. That moment will not be the universe's default state. It is the exception. There is something almost vertiginous in recognizing that we exist on the bright side of a long fade, not because we are central to anything, but because the conditions that allow our existence, stable stars, settled galaxies, accessible distant light, are themselves transient. We are not living in the cosmos as it usually is. We are living in the cosmos as it temporarily is. The default condition, the configuration the universe seems to be heading toward, is much quieter, much darker, much emptier than the one we currently inhabit. We are not in the middle of the story. We are early in it, and the early chapters happen to be the ones that contain the most light. And as the realization deepens, the night sky changes one final time in the imagination. It is no longer just a sky of beauty, or a sky of illusion, or a sky of distance. It is a sky of borrowed time. Every star above your head is a temporary furnace. Every distant galaxy is a temporary structure. Every photon that reaches your eyes from the depths of space has traveled across an expanse that is, quietly, growing larger behind it. The signal is here now. It will not always be here. The cosmos that allows your eyes to see is the cosmos in the act of slowly becoming something that no eyes will be able to see. There is a temptation, when faced with such a picture, to reach for comfort, to find some sense in which it does not really matter, or some sense in which life will continue, or some sense in which the universe is more than its long arc of dispersion. Be careful with that temptation. The picture is not improved by softening it. The discomfort it produces is not a flaw in the description. It is the natural response of a thinking mind to a reality whose scale and trajectory do not align with what that mind was built to expect. The right response is not to look away from it, but to look at it carefully and to let it shape what you understand the universe to be. Because what you understand the universe to be will not change what the universe is. The voids will continue to grow whether or not you find them comforting. The expansion will continue to accelerate whether or not you find it terrifying. The stars will burn out whether or not you mourn them. The black holes will evaporate whether or not anyone is left to record it. The cosmos does not adjust its physics to match the emotional needs of its observers. It proceeds, and the proceeding is what we have been describing all along. And yet, within this proceeding, there is still something worth lingering over, not as comfort, but as recognition. For a brief window, against the long arc of cosmic dispersion, the universe has assembled itself into structures complex enough to ask what it is. The atoms forged in dying stars, scattered across interstellar space, gathered into planets, organized into chemistries, woven into nervous systems, eventually produced somewhere, the capacity to look upward and wonder. This capacity will not last forever. The conditions that allow it will eventually pass, but while it exists, it is one of the more unusual things the universe has done with its raw materials. The minds that ask the question are themselves part of the universe asking about itself. There is something strange about that, but it is not necessarily reassuring. It does not change the trajectory. It does not slow the expansion. It does not refill the voids. It simply means that for a brief stretch of cosmic time, the universe contains pockets of matter capable of describing the very process by which the larger cosmos is moving towards silence. The describing does not stop the silence. It only precedes it. And the silence, when you look at it honestly, is not a metaphor. It is a literal property of the long future. Sound, of course, has never traveled through the vacuum of space, but silence in the cosmic sense is something more than the absence of sound. It is the absence of events, the absence of contrasts, the absence of the kinds of differences from which any signal could be constructed. In the deep future of the universe, when the stars are gone, when the black holes have evaporated, when the particles drift across distances that no longer permit interaction, there will be no events worth marking. Time will continue, abstractly, but almost nothing will happen within it. Think about that. Time without events. Duration without change. A universe whose clock continues to advance but whose pages no longer fill with anything that could be read. The cosmos may exist in some sense for spans of time so long that even the longest stretches of its bright era are vanishingly brief by comparison. And in those vast empty durations, the universe will be, for all practical purposes, doing nothing. It will simply be in the most diluted, most dispersed, most inert sense the word allows, and there is no return path from that state. Entropy does not naturally reverse. Voids do not naturally collapse back into structure. Stretched space does not spontaneously contract. The processes that have been described are not cycles. They are trajectories. The universe is not breathing in and out. It is, by every indication available, moving in one direction, and that direction is toward less, not more. Some thinkers have wondered whether something deeper might intervene. New physics, perhaps, on scales we cannot yet reach. Quantum fluctuations that might, on impossibly long timescales, produce something out of the dispersed nothing. Multiverse scenarios that allow other regions to be born when ours is exhausted. These are real ideas, and they are taken seriously by serious people. But they are speculative. They are not measured. They are not confirmed. They are hopes draped over the edge of what current physics can support. They may turn out to be true. They may turn out to be wrong. Either way, they do not soften the picture as we currently understand it. They only suggest that beyond the picture, there might be something else. Somewhere, somehow, in a way we cannot yet describe. For now, the picture stands. The universe is mostly empty, and that emptiness is growing. The visible structures are real, but they are not the dominant feature. They are bright accents on a much larger dark canvas. The cosmic web is being thinned by the slow growth of the voids. The horizons are tightening around what we can ever observe. The stars are aging. The galaxies are isolating. The black holes are patiently waiting their turn to evaporate. The future is silent and stretched. The present, with all its visible richness, is a brief, exceptional configuration in the long life of the cosmos. And you, the observer, the small biological system reading these words from somewhere on the surface of a planet orbiting a single star in one arm of a single galaxy, in one node of the cosmic web, are part of this exception. Not central to it, not protected from it, just part of it. A pattern of matter and energy that the universe assembled at this particular moment, capable of wondering about the rest. The wondering itself is one of the things the universe has produced. It does not change what the universe is, it only means that for a while the universe contains something that can look at it. So look, not for comfort, not for meaning, just for accuracy. Look at the sky and try to see it as it actually is. A thin scatter of close, bright stars projected onto a darkness that hides immense distances. A faint band of light that is the combined glow of many distant suns. A few smudges that are entire galaxies trapped in your peripheral imagination. Beyond all of that, a cosmic web you cannot see directly, a network of filaments and voids whose architecture extends in every direction. Beyond that, regions of the universe whose light has not yet reached you. Beyond that, regions of the universe whose light will never reach you. And beyond all of that, a long, slow future in which most of what is currently visible will quietly slip into the unreachable. The night sky is honest if you know how to read it. It does not lie about distance. It does not lie about scale. It does not lie about the slow growth of emptiness between things. It only lies about how full it seems. And even that lie is a side effect of how you were built, not a deception offered by the cosmos. The universe is not trying to mislead you. You were simply built to perceive a narrow slice of it, and that slice happens to look more inviting than the whole. There is no comforting summary that closes this picture. There is no twist at the end where the dispersion turns into something gentler, or the voids prove to be illusions, or the expansion reverses, or the stars find a way to last forever. The current best understanding of the cosmos does not include any such twist. It includes only the long, patient unfolding that has been described, and the right response to it is not denial, it is attention. So let your attention rest, one last time, on the picture. A planet under a thin atmosphere, lit by a single ordinary star. A galaxy spiraling slowly through space around a heavy central darkness. A local group of galaxies drifting together, on their way to merging into a single, quieter structure. A supercluster around them fraying at its edges. A cosmic web of filaments and voids extending beyond the supercluster. Mostly empty, mostly silent. An expansion stretching all of it, gently, irreversibly, faster with every passing eon. A horizon closing in, not on the universe itself, but on what any single observer can ever reach. A future in which the visible cosmos becomes a smaller and smaller fraction of the actual cosmos. A deeper future in which even what remains visible fades into remnants. A deeper future still in which even the remnants evaporate into a thin mist of particles spread across distances beyond all meaningful measurement. And finally, beyond all of that, the silence. Not as drama, not as ending, just as the state the universe is moving toward. A configuration in which there is no more useful energy, no more bright structure, no more dense matter, no more events to mark the passage of whatever time still abstractly continues. A universe that has spent itself gently across spans of duration no number can carry. There will be no observer to confirm that final state. No telescope will record it. No mind will recognize it. The capacity for observation requires structure, and structure will not have survived to that point. The universe will simply be, in the most diluted way possible, with no one and nothing to acknowledge that it is. Time, if it can still be called that, will move forward into an extension that contains no further story. And from that long, silent future, look back in your imagination to where you are now, to the planet beneath you, to the chair, or the room, or the path where you happen to be reading or listening to these words, to the sky above that ceiling, the sky you cannot see at this exact moment, but that is still there, waiting, to the stars that will be there tonight, or tomorrow night, or the next clear night when you are willing to step outside and look. Those stars are still burning. The galaxies beyond them are still shining. The cosmic web is still woven. The voids are still bounded by their luminous threads. The horizons have not yet closed in. The universe, in this exact moment, still contains all of the richness that the long future will eventually take away. It is the early chapter. It is the bright window. It is the brief configuration in which observation, structure, and complexity all happen to be possible at the same time, in the same place, for the same brief while. This is the universe you live in, not the one you grew up imagining, not the warm, full, populated cosmos that the night sky seemed to suggest, not the eternal stage that older cosmologies described, but a vast, mostly empty, slowly dispersing structure whose current beauty is real, and also temporary, and also embedded in a trajectory that the cosmos has already set in motion. The lights are real, the distances are real, the voids are real, the acceleration is real, the fade is real. All of it is the same single universe, behaving exactly as the evidence suggests it does, and there is no way to step outside this picture. There is no privileged vantage point from which the trajectory looks different. There is no observer for whom the cosmic web is denser, the void smaller, the expansion gentler, the future warmer. The universe has the same long arc no matter where, or when, or by whom it is observed. Every conscious mind that has ever existed or that will ever exist lives somewhere along that arc, in some local pocket of structure, briefly capable of looking up. So when you look up tonight, or the next time the sky is clear, try to hold all of this at once. The closeness of the stars and the actual distances behind them, the fullness of the sky and the emptiness it conceals, the brightness of the galaxies and the voids that surround them, the visible glow and the dark architecture beneath, the expansion that is already underway, the horizon that is already there, the future that is already beginning, the silence that is, very slowly, already arriving. None of it will stop because you noticed. None of it will pause because you understood. None of it will turn aside because a mind, somewhere in the universe, finally registered the trajectory clearly. The universe does not need your noticing. The universe does not register the arrival of awareness as a meaningful event. It continues, it expands, it cools, it thins, it empties, it does what it does, and the doing is what the cosmos is. You are a brief witness to a long process. The witnessing is not the point of the process. There is no point of the process. There is only the process. And within it, for an unaccountably small interval, there has been you, and the people you know, and the species you belong to, and the planet you stand on, and the star that warms it, and the galaxy that contains it, and the local group that surrounds it, and the supercluster that anchors it, and the cosmic web that defines its place, and the immense, mostly empty universe that holds all of it in a configuration that will not last. The right way to end is not with comfort. The right way to end is with the picture intact. A universe in which the night sky was always an illusion of fullness, draped over a far emptier reality. A universe in which the visible structures are slowly being pulled apart by the growth of the void between them. A universe in which the distant galaxies are receding beyond every possible horizon. A universe in which the local lights, however dear, are temporary. A universe whose long future is silent, stretched, and unreachable in directions that have no edges, only further extensions of the same dark. There's one last image worth leaving in the mind. Picture a small planet, alone in a quiet galaxy, in the far future. Its star is dim, its sky is almost empty. The nearby galaxies, the once bright neighbors, are long gone, carried beyond observation by the patient expansion of space. The cosmic web is a memory unreadable from this vantage point. The voids have spread until they have become essentially everything. On this planet, if anything still survives to look upward, the observer sees a sky in which their own galaxy is the entire visible universe. No filaments, no clusters, no distant lights, only their own home and the dark around it. They might think they understand the universe from this view. They might build models. They might tell stories. They might conclude that they have seen what there is to see. They will be wrong, but they will have no way to know. The truth of the universe will have already slipped beyond their horizon, into regions of space whose light no longer reaches them, into chapters of cosmic history that have already closed. They will be looking at a much smaller universe than the one that actually exists, and eventually, even that smaller universe will fade around them as their own stars age, as their own remnants cool, as their own structures wear down. And now return your attention to the sky you can still see, the sky we share, in this brief shared moment of cosmic time, the sky that still contains the evidence of voids and webs and acceleration, the sky that still allows the distant past of the universe to send its light into our instruments, the sky that has not yet faded, the sky that, by every careful measurement we have, is one of the most informative and richly observable skies that any era of the cosmos will ever offer. We did not earn this view. We did not choose to exist within this window. We simply arrived at this point in the unfolding, capable, briefly, of understanding what we see. The understanding has consequences. It tells us that the cosmos is not arranged around us, not arranged around life, not arranged around anything in particular. It tells us that the universe is mostly empty and growing emptier. It tells us that the future is silent and stretched. It tells us that the lights we love are exceptions in a long arc of dispersion, and it tells us that none of this changes when we notice it. The cosmos continues exactly as it would have continued if no one had ever looked. The night sky, then, is what it has always been, a thin, beautiful surface on a much larger emptiness, a flattened image of a structure whose true geometry stretches into voids, whose true history extends into a deep past, whose true future extends into a deeper silence. The wonder it provokes is real. The illusion it sustains is also real. Both are true at once, and the observer caught between them, the one who looks and feels and wonders and finally understands, is part of the very brief moment when both can be held in the same mind at the same time. There is nothing further to say that would soften this. The universe is what it is. The trajectory is what it is. The voids are growing. The expansion is accelerating. The horizons are closing. The stars are aging. The galaxies are isolating. The black holes are waiting. The silence is approaching, on its own slow clock, regardless of any narration that might describe it. So look up, while there is still a sky worth reading, while the distances are still spanned by light that can reach you, while the galaxies are still close enough to be seen, while the cosmic web still holds. while the universe in its long unfolding still contains a moment in which you exist as an observer, capable of recognizing what you are inside of. And then let the silence have the last word, because in the end, that is the word the cosmos has chosen, not by intention, not by malice, not by anything that could be called a will, simply by being what it is, doing what it does, across spans of time and distance that have no concern for any of us, and that will continue, long after every light has faded, into a vast, stretched, empty dark, from which nothing further will ever return. And yet, even after the last word has been spoken, the mind does not quite let go. There is a strange aftertaste to this kind of knowledge. You can put down the description. You can close the book, or end the recording, or step away from the screen. But the picture stays. It sits somewhere behind the daily images of ordinary life, a quiet second layer behind the usual surfaces. The kitchen, the street, the faces around you, all of it continues. But behind it faintly, there is now also the cosmic web, the voids, the expansion, the long, slow fade. The ordinary world does not erase the cosmic one. They begin, instead, to coexist. This coexistence is worth attending to. It is one of the unusual side effects of cosmology. Once you have understood even partially what the universe is doing on its largest scales, you cannot entirely return to the smaller frame of perception you began with. The sky still looks the same. The stars still appear roughly where they always did, but what you know about them changes how their presence feels. The light arriving at your eyes is no longer just light. It is a signal that has crossed a particular kind of darkness, from a particular kind of structure, in a particular phase of a much longer process. The aesthetic experience of looking at the night sky has been quietly altered, perhaps permanently, by understanding what the night sky actually is, and it changes the daytime too. The sky during the day, that bright pale blue dome that hides everything beyond it, becomes a different kind of veil. You know now that behind it, the same cosmic web is still there, the same voids, the same accelerating expansion. The blue is only the local light scattered by the local atmosphere. The cosmos has not left for the day. It has only been hidden by the brightness of one nearby star. The dark structure remains behind the light all the time. You stop being able to feel the sky as a simple ceiling. It becomes, instead, a thin curtain pulled lightly across an immense, intricate dark. There is also eventually a quieter realization. The same indifference of the cosmos that seemed at first to be a kind of cold dismissal begins to look slightly different when you sit with it long enough. The universe is not hostile. Hostility would require attention. The universe is not cruel. Cruelty would require intent. The universe is something stranger than either. It is a system whose behavior is entirely independent of whether anyone is watching, whether anyone is suffering, whether anyone is hoping. It is not against us. It is not for us. It is simply not oriented toward us at all. And this lack of orientation is, in its own way, a kind of freedom. The universe is not measuring you. It has not measured anyone. It is doing its physics, and you are doing your living, and the two processes intersect only in your perception. That intersection is brief, but it is also actual. The universe really is happening. Your awareness really is happening. There is no contradiction between the smallness of one and the vastness of the other. There is only a difference of scale. The mountain does not become less real because the planet is large. The planet does not become less real because the galaxy is larger. The galaxy does not become less real because the cosmic web stretches further. And your existence, even on this enormous backdrop, does not become unreal because the cosmos around it is so far beyond it. You are simply small. Smallness is not non-existence. The two are often confused, but they are not the same thing. This is worth lingering on, because the picture of the universe that has been built here can easily slide, in the mind, into a sense of personal insignificance that is more emotional than logical. The voids do not actually erase you. The expansion does not actually annul you. The far future does not actually invalidate the present. What it does is place the present in context, and context is not the same as cancellation. You are still here. The fact that the universe is mostly empty does not subtract from the fact that you are not. The fact that the future is silent does not subtract from the fact that the present, locally, is not. The discomfort that comes with cosmology is not the discovery of insignificance. It is the discovery of disproportion. The scales of the cosmos are wildly out of proportion with the scales of human experience. Time is out of proportion. Distance is out of proportion. Emptiness is out of proportion. Even the matter that exists is dominated by components we cannot see. None of this means that human experience is meaningless. It means that human experience is not the unit by which the universe is measured. The universe has no preferred unit. It simply has the dimensions it has, and those dimensions extend far beyond anything any single observer can hold. And yet observers exist. This too is part of the picture, and it is worth holding alongside the rest. The universe, in its long unfolding, has produced regions in which the local conditions allow complex structures to form, organize, and persist for brief intervals. These regions are rare in the cosmic sense. They occupy a small fraction of the volume of space. Their existence is not the universe's purpose. It is simply something the universe can do, given the right combination of physics, chemistry, and local circumstance. The fact that observers exist at all is not evidence that the universe was designed for them. It is evidence that the universe contains, among its many possible configurations, ones that happen to support observation. And being one of those configurations is a strange thing. You are, in a very literal sense, a temporary arrangement of atoms whose particular pattern allows the universe to be perceived from inside itself. The atoms were not made for you. They came from the deaths of stars, from the fusion processes that built heavier elements out of the original hydrogen and helium, from the explosive scattering of those elements into interstellar gas, from the gravitational gathering of that gas into the planet you stand on, from the slow chemistry that eventually produced living cells, from the long evolution that eventually produced minds. The atoms have a longer history than you do. They will outlast you. They will be reused, redistributed, returned eventually to the same cosmic processes that produced them. You are not separate from the universe. You are one of the configurations it has been doing for a brief while. There is something quietly grounding in this, even within the larger picture of dispersion. You are not an exception to the cosmos. You are not an observer added from outside. You are an instance of the cosmos doing one of the things it does here now briefly, with the particular pattern of matter that constitutes you. The voids do not invalidate you, because you are part of the same universe as the voids. The expansion does not erase you because you are part of the same space-time that is expanding. The long fade ahead does not delete you from the past, because the past, once it has happened, remains a part of the history of the cosmos, whether or not anyone is left to remember it. The history of the cosmos. That phrase deserves attention, because one of the deeper, quieter consequences of the picture that has been built is that everything that has happened in the entire history of the universe has happened. It is not undone by the future. The stars that have already lived have lived. The galaxies that have already formed have formed. The civilizations that may have already risen and fallen on worlds we will never see have, on those worlds, actually risen and fallen. The far future does not reach backward and remove them. It only follows them. The universe's long arc toward dispersion does not erase its earlier chapters. It simply succeeds them. In the same way, your existence in this particular slice of cosmic time is not retroactively canceled by the silence that will eventually follow. The silence comes after. It does not come before. The present, the one you are currently inside of, is real, and the fact that it is brief does not unmake it. The cosmos does not require permanence in order for things to count as having happened. Permanence is a human craving, not a cosmic feature. The universe, by every indication, does not produce permanence. It produces episodes, configurations, intervals, processes. They occur, and then they pass. Their occurrence is not erased by their passing. This is not the same as saying that everything is fine. It is not a reassurance. It is only an observation about the structure of time. Things that happen, happen. The fact that they will eventually be over does not retroactively undo them. The fact that the universe's long future is silent does not retroactively silence the present. The present is loud, in its own way. Stars are burning, galaxies are turning, planets are spinning, lives are being lived, words are being spoken. None of this is hypothetical. It is right now the actual state of the universe. And right now the actual state of the universe also includes the long trajectory described in everything that has come before. Both are true at the same time. The cosmos is, in this moment, both bright and fading, both structured and dispersing, both observable and slipping past its own horizons. The current condition is not separate from the long arc. It is the early portion of it, and being early in the arc is not nothing. It is, in fact, the only place where observation is possible. The early arc is when light is still moving, when structures are still forming, when contrasts are still strong enough to allow events to happen. We exist, then, in the part of cosmic history when things can still happen, not because we earned it, not because we were destined for it, simply because this is when the conditions allowed it, and those conditions extend, in some form, for an enormous span of time ahead of us, vastly longer than human civilization has existed, vastly longer than the species that will follow us, is likely to last. The era of bright structure is not ending tomorrow. It is ending, in the cosmic sense, slowly, gradually, over spans of time whose closing chapters are still unimaginably far in the future. The window is closing, but it is closing slowly, and we are nowhere near its edge. This is worth saying clearly, because the trajectory described earlier can easily produce a sense of imminent finality that is not actually warranted. The heat death is not next year. The horizon closing is not next millennium. The fading of distant galaxies is happening, but on timescales that exceed the lifespan of every individual life and every individual civilization by margins that defy ordinary intuition. The picture is true. It is also not urgent in any personal sense. The cosmos is winding down, but it is winding down on its own clock, and its clock leaves room for an immense amount of further activity, including, perhaps, futures we have not yet imagined. There is room, then, within the long arc, for almost anything that does not require permanence to be valuable. There is room for discovery. There is room for understanding. There is room for the patient construction of knowledge across generations. There is room for art, for relationship, for memory, for invention. None of these will last forever. None of them have to. They occur within the window the cosmos still holds open. The window is wide. It is not infinite, but it is wide enough that almost everything any human will ever do happens entirely within its boundaries, without ever brushing against its edges. And the edges, when you look at them honestly, are not pressing inward at any rate that affects daily life. The voids are growing, but the local cosmos around us still holds together. The expansion is accelerating, but our galaxy and its neighbors are bound. The stars are aging, but our sun has billions of years of stable burning still ahead of it. The cosmic horizon is tightening, but the sky tonight will look essentially the same as it did 1,000 years ago. The trajectory is real, but its effects are subtle on any timescale shorter than the cosmic. From inside a single life, the universe seems steady, and in many practical senses, it is. So the picture you are left with is layered. On the largest scales, the universe is mostly empty, expanding and trending toward dispersion. On the medium scales, structures still exist, still hold together, still produce light and chemistry and matter in interesting arrangements. On the smaller scales, planets continue to orbit, stars continue to burn, and the local conditions for complex existence continue, for now, to be intact. All of these scales are true at once. None of them is the only truth. The cosmos contains all of them simultaneously, and a complete view of it requires holding all of them at once, without letting any one of them erase the others. This is, in some sense, the work that cosmology asks of a mind. Not to choose between the local view and the cosmic view, but to hold both. To see the sky as both intimate and vast, to experience the present as both real and brief, to recognize the universe as both indifferent and the source of one's own existence. None of these pairings are contradictions. They are different aspects of a single immensely large reality, whose dimensions exceed any single perspective, and holding them does not require resolving them. The mind does not need to flatten the picture into a single statement that fits comfortably on a page. The universe is too large for that. The most honest response is to leave the picture as it is, complex and layered, and to let it shape the way you look at things. Not by forcing every thought to be cosmic, not by abandoning the small concerns of daily life, but by allowing occasionally the larger context to drift into view, like a faint background tone behind the main melody of ordinary experience. That background tone, once it has been heard clearly even once, does not disappear. It becomes part of the way you perceive. The sky is no longer just the sky. The night is no longer just the night. The distance between you and a star is no longer just a number. They become, in some quiet way, parts of a much larger composition, whose full extent you cannot perceive, but whose existence you can no longer entirely forget. And the larger composition continues to unfold whether you remember it or not. Galaxies are colliding somewhere, right now, while you read or listen to these words. Stars are being born somewhere else, in dense clouds of gas, igniting into nuclear fire for the first time. Supernovae are exploding, scattering heavy elements into the interstellar medium that may, in some distant future, be gathered into new worlds. Black holes are merging, sending gravitational waves rippling through space-time, some of which will pass through this planet so faintly that only the most sensitive instruments can register them. The cosmos is busy. It is busy on its own scale, in its own way, with no need for an audience, and the busyness will continue for now. The era of bright structure is still unfolding. The stars are still being made. The galaxies are still being shaped. The cosmic web is still articulating itself. The expansion is accelerating, but the structures within the web are still glowing, still interacting, still doing what structures do. The long fade is real, but it has not arrived. It is on its way, slowly, patiently, but it has not arrived. The universe is still in its bright chapter, and the bright chapter is what we are inside of. And inside this bright chapter, there is still the question of what to do with the perspective that cosmology offers. There is no single right answer to that question. Some people respond to it with awe, finding in the vastness a kind of spacious wonder that lifts them out of small concerns. Some respond to it with grief, mourning the eventual fade and the smallness of every human endeavor against the cosmic backdrop. Some respond to it with a curious calm, recognizing that the indifference of the universe means that no cosmic judgment is being passed on any of us, in either direction. Some respond by ignoring it entirely, returning to the immediate textures of their lives and treating the cosmic view as a curiosity rather than a permanent backdrop. All of these responses are possible, and the cosmos does not seem to prefer one over another. Whatever response is chosen, the facts of the picture do not change. The voids will continue to grow. The expansion will continue to accelerate. The cosmic web will continue to thin. The stars will continue to age. The horizons will continue to tighten. And the present, the bright and richly observable present, will continue to unfold briefly against this longer backdrop for as long as the local conditions allow. So perhaps the most accurate closing image is not the silence of the deep future, but the present moment itself, with all of its layers held at once. Picture, one final time, the place where you are, the room, the chair, the floor, the walls, the light, whatever its source, the air, with its faint movement, your own body, breathing, holding its temperature, sustaining itself through chemistry inherited from stellar deaths. Around the room, the building. Around the building, the city or the landscape. Around the landscape, the curve of the planet. Around the planet, the atmosphere thinning into vacuum. Around the planet, the sun. Around the sun, the other planets, the asteroid belts, the comets, the Kuiper belt, the heliopause, the interstellar medium beyond. Around the solar system, the local stars. Around the local stars, the galactic arm. Around the arm, the spiral disk of the Milky Way. Around the Milky Way, the local group. Around the local group, the Virgo cluster. Around the cluster, the supercluster. Around the supercluster, the cosmic web with its filaments and voids. Around the web, the rest of the observable universe. Around the observable universe, the unobservable extension that lies beyond every horizon. And around all of it, in the largest sense, the long trajectory that all of it shares. You are inside all of this right now, simultaneously. None of the layers cancel each other. None of them is more real than another. The room is real. The planet is real. The galaxy is real. The cosmic web is real. The long arc is real. And your presence within all of it, brief, small, temporary, conscious, is also real, in exactly the way that anything else in the universe is real, not more, not less, just as part of the same single cosmos. The night sky, then, is not only a deception, or only a window, or only a fade. It is all of those at once. It is the local interface where your eyes meet the rest of the universe. It is the layer where you can still, with patient attention, perceive something of what surrounds you on every side. It is the surface across which light has been traveling, sometimes for billions of years, to deliver itself to a creature that did not exist when it began its journey. And the creature, briefly, sees. The creature, briefly, understands, or at least begins to understand. The creature, briefly, holds in mind a picture that exceeds it on every axis: time, space, structure, scale. The holding is not permanent, the understanding is not complete, but it occurs, and in occurring, it is one of the things the universe has done, in this particular bright chapter of its long unfolding. The chapter continues, the unfolding continues. The cosmos, mostly empty and slowly emptying, still contains, for now, the conditions under which observers can exist. You are one of them. The sky above you is part of the same universe that contains the voids and the expansion and the long quiet ahead. None of it is hidden from you in principle. All of it is, in some form, available to attention. So when the next clear night comes, and you find yourself, by chance or by choice, standing somewhere with a view of the sky, remember what is actually there. The stars you can see, the galaxies you cannot, the web you can only imagine, the voids that dominate the volume, the expansion that is happening even as you watch, the horizons that are tightening, the long future that is approaching very slowly from the other side of unimaginable durations, and, within all of it, the small, specific, undeniable fact of your own presence, briefly capable of registering all of this at once. That is the universe. Not in summary, but in honest layout, mostly empty, slowly fading, locally bright, briefly observed, long unfolding, indifferent to the observation, and yet in this exact moment still containing it. The night sky is the place where all of these meet, and the meeting is, in its own quiet way, one of the most unusual events the cosmos currently allows. It will not always allow it, but it allows it now, and now is when you are here to notice. Let that be enough, not because the picture is comforting, but because the picture is true. The cosmos is what it is. You are inside it. The sky is above you. The voids are around it. The expansion continues. The long silence approaches, and the brief brightness, the brief observation, the brief mind that holds it all together for a single moment is happening, here, in this configuration of matter, in this corner of the universe, in this chapter of its long story, while there is still light to see by, and still distance enough between things for the light to mean something when it arrives. And yet, even letting it be enough, there is a final layer that has not quite been addressed, because if you sit with the picture long enough, something else begins to surface, something that does not arrive immediately, but that emerges only after the larger architecture has been absorbed and the initial reactions have settled. It is a quieter realization, slower in coming, but harder to dislodge once it arrives. And it concerns not the cosmos itself, but the relationship between the cosmos and the mind that has been trying to hold it. The mind that has followed this description, paragraph by paragraph, image by image, is a small biological system running on a thin chemistry inside a skull, on a planet, on one arm of a galaxy. It was not built to contain the cosmos. It was built to track predators, to recognize faces, to find food, to navigate social arrangements, to survive long enough to reproduce. The capacity to entertain ideas about the cosmic web, the voids, the expansion, the long fade, is a side effect of cognitive abilities that evolved for entirely different purposes. The mind was not designed for this. It is, in some sense, improvising. And the improvisation has limits. The mind can represent the cosmos. It can build symbols, equations, diagrams, narratives. It can hold the picture, more or less, but it cannot feel the picture in the way it feels closer things. It cannot grieve the voids the way it grieves a death. It cannot register the expansion of space the way it registers the cold of a winter morning. The cosmos is held, when it is held at all, in a region of the mind slightly detached from the regions where feeling and immediate experience actually live. It is known intellectually, and only intellectually. The deeper layers of the nervous system continue to behave as if the only universe is the one within arm's reach. This is not a failure. It is simply what the mind is. But it has a consequence. It means that no matter how clearly the cosmic picture is understood, daily life will continue to feel like the center of things. The cup on the table, the sound of someone's voice, the texture of the day will continue to occupy the foreground. The voids will not. The cosmic web will not. The long fade will not. They will hover, faintly, at the edge of attention, but they will not move into the place where life is actually lived. The center will hold locally because the mind has no other way to operate, and that in turn leads to a strange asymmetry. The cosmos is mostly empty, mostly dark, mostly indifferent, but the mind cannot really inhabit that emptiness. It can only inhabit the small, bright local pocket where it happens to exist. So even the most cosmically aware person spends almost all of their actual experience inside a perspective that, by cosmic standards, is microscopic. The cosmic view is something the mind visits. It is not something the mind lives in, and every visit ends with a return to the local frame, where bodies move and conversations happen, and the floor stays under the feet. There is something unsettling in that, because it means the cosmic perspective does not finally integrate. It does not become a permanent foundation on which daily life rests. It remains instead a kind of guest in the mind. It can be invited in. It can be sat with. It can be allowed to shape certain decisions, certain priorities, certain quiet evenings of reflection, but it does not move in. The everyday continues to dominate, because the everyday is what the nervous system is built to register. The cosmos has to be deliberately summoned. Left alone, the mind forgets it, and the cosmos does not mind being forgotten. It does not register the forgetting. It continues whether it is held in any mind or not. The forgetting changes the mind that forgets. It does not change the universe, so you can carry the picture or set it down or pick it up again later, and the universe continues exactly as before. The voids grow, the expansion accelerates, the horizons tighten. The forgetting is your problem, not the cosmos's. This, perhaps, is the part that takes the longest to absorb. Not the size of the universe, not the emptiness, not the fade, but the fact that none of it requires your attention to continue. The cosmos does not need to be witnessed in order to proceed. It does not need its picture to be held by any mind in order to be what it is. Every star that has ever burned has burned without requiring observation. Every galaxy that has ever formed has formed without needing an audience. The universe is doing what it does in complete independence from whether anyone, anywhere, is currently aware of any of it. And this independence extends, eventually, to you. The brief configuration of matter that is your mind, currently engaged in trying to hold the cosmic picture, is itself one of the things the universe is doing without needing to do. It is not load-bearing. The cosmos would proceed identically without it. The picture in your mind is real, but it is not necessary. The universe is not waiting for it. The universe is not improved by it. The universe is simply going on, and your version of the picture is one of many local events occurring within it, like a faint reflection in a window that the room does not particularly need. There is a temptation, at this point, to find something redemptive in the act of awareness itself, to suggest that the universe, by producing minds that can observe it, has somehow given itself meaning or completed itself, or become worth the long arc by virtue of being briefly understood. Be careful with that suggestion. It is comforting, but it is not obviously true. The universe does not appear to require completion. It does not appear to need meaning. The notion that observation gives the cosmos value is a notion that arises in observers. It is not a notion that arises in the cosmos. The observers may believe it. The cosmos does not weigh in, and if you sit honestly with that, a particular kind of quiet sets in. Not despair exactly, not nihilism exactly, something more like a clear, cool awareness that the structures we use to give the universe importance are structures internal to us. The universe is not asking to be made important. It is not requesting to be observed. It is not demanding to be loved. It is simply present in its own way, doing its own physics on its own clock. Whatever importance we assign to it is a property of us, not of it, and the same is true in reverse. The universe is not assigning importance to us either. It is not deciding whether we matter. It is not granting or withholding significance. It has no opinion. It has no perspective from which an opinion could be formed. It is not the kind of thing that can value or devalue. It is a process, and the process includes, briefly locally, the existence of beings who have opinions about it. The opinions belong to the beings. The process belongs to itself. So when the brief beings disappear, as they will, individually and eventually collectively, the opinions disappear with them. The valuing stops. The mourning stops. The wondering stops. The cosmos does not record any of this. It does not store the lost perspectives in some greater memory. It does not preserve them in any cosmic ledger. They simply cease. And after they cease, the universe continues, exactly as it would have continued if they had never occurred. Their occurrence will not have been undone. Their occurrence will simply have ended, and the ending will not be marked. This is, perhaps, the most unsettling element of the entire picture. Not the size, not the emptiness, not the fade, but the absence of any cosmic accounting. The universe keeps no record. It does not remember. It does not mourn its lost configurations. It does not commemorate the brief existence of its observers. The stars that have already burned out have not left a memorial behind them, only their scattered material and their faint, fading light. The civilizations that may have already ended on worlds we will never visit have not been preserved in any cosmic archive. They simply ended, and what they were is no longer anywhere in particular, and the same will be true of us. Whatever we build, whatever we discover, whatever we record, whatever we transmit, will eventually become indistinguishable from the rest of the slowly dispersing matter and radiation of the cosmos. The libraries will not survive. The data will not survive. The buildings will not survive. The languages will not survive. The thoughts will not survive. They are not designed to. They exist within a window, and the window will close, and what was inside it will not be preserved by the universe in any form that could be recognized as preservation. The mind recoils slightly from this. It is built to imagine continuity. It tells itself stories of legacy, of memory, of impact across time. These stories work, locally and briefly. A grandparent is remembered by grandchildren. A book is read for centuries. A civilization influences the one that follows it. These are real continuities on the scales they occupy, but they are short, by cosmic standards. They do not extend into the deep future. They do not survive the long arc. They occur, they persist for a while, and then they fade like everything else. And the fade is not malicious. That is the part that keeps returning. There is no enemy of memory. There is no force opposed to continuity. The fade is simply the natural direction of a universe in which entropy increases, in which space expands, in which structures slowly come apart on long enough timescales. The cosmos does not target anyone. It simply does what it does, and what it does erodes eventually everything within it, not as punishment, not as judgment, as physics. So the picture, in its completed form, is this: a universe vast beyond intuition, mostly empty, slowly emptying. A bright early chapter in which structure formed, stars ignited, galaxies organized themselves into webs and clusters, and observers here and there briefly emerged. A long middle, already underway, in which the bright structures slowly age and disperse. A deep future in which the lights go out, the remnants evaporate, the matter unwinds, and the cosmos settles into a state of stretched, exhausted silence, from which no return is possible. And throughout all of this, no cosmic memory, no preservation, no record beyond what physics happens to leave in the diluting particles and the indifferent expansion, and we are inside this, right now, reading or listening to this description, in the middle of the bright chapter, with the long arc already in motion behind and ahead. The voids are growing as you read this sentence. The expansion is accelerating as you finish this paragraph. The galaxies at the edge of the observable universe are drifting toward the horizon at this very moment. The sun is burning through its hydrogen. The earth is turning. Your body is aging by tiny increments, in step with the universe's larger aging. None of this stops. None of this pauses. None of this waits for any conclusion. There is no resting place in this picture. There is no point at which the universe stabilizes into something permanent and bearable. There is only motion in one direction. The motion is slow. The motion is patient. The motion is not personal, but the motion is constant, and it is, in the largest sense, the only true feature of the cosmos. Everything else, every star, every galaxy, every observer, every thought, every word, is a temporary feature within that motion. The motion will outlast them all. And then, in the deepest future, even the motion will become almost nothing, as there will be almost nothing left to move. Hold that, not as a moral, not as a warning, not as a lesson, just as a description of where you are. You are inside a process that is heading, very slowly, toward a state in which it can no longer support anything like you. The process is not aimed at you. The process is not against you. The process simply is what it is, and you are one of its current contents. The contents change over time. You will not be among them indefinitely. Nothing currently visible will be among them indefinitely. The cosmos does not include any indefinite residence, and there is no upper authority to appeal to. There is no court, no agency, no observer beyond the cosmos that might intervene. The universe is not embedded in something larger that cares about it. As far as anyone can tell, the universe is the largest context there is, and the universe does not care. Not because it has decided not to care, but because caring is not the kind of thing it does. Caring is a property of certain configurations of matter inside it. The universe itself does not have configurations. It is the medium in which configurations occur. So the picture closes without rescue. There is no rescuer in it. There is no architect who will arrive in the deep future to reignite the stars. There is no compensating mechanism that will restore what has been lost. There is no cycle that will return the cosmos to its bright beginning. The arc bends one way, and there is no force in the current understanding of physics that bends it back. Whatever happens beyond the limits of what we can currently measure is unknown, and it is not safe to fill that unknown with hopes. The honest position is to say, we do not know, but every measurement so far points toward the fade, and inside this fade, you are still here. The fade has not yet arrived. The bright chapter still contains you. The stars are still burning above the daytime sky just as they always do, hidden behind the brightness of the sun. The galaxies are still rotating. The cosmic web is still woven. The voids are large, but they have not yet swallowed the structures. There is still light. There is still distance crossed by light. There is still a sky, and there is still a creature looking at it, briefly, before either the creature ends, or the sky empties, or both. There is a particular pressure that comes from sitting fully with this. It is not the pressure of urgency. It is the pressure of accuracy. the accuracy of knowing what is actually around you, what is actually approaching, what is actually the case. Most lives are lived without this pressure. Most lives operate inside the local frame, where the cosmos is a backdrop and the everyday is the substance. Cosmology lifts the backdrop into view, and once it has been lifted, it cannot be entirely lowered again. The pressure of accuracy continues faintly in the background of every ordinary moment, and it changes nothing, and it changes everything. Nothing about the universe is altered by your knowing it, but something about you is altered, slightly, permanently, by the knowing. You become a creature that contains, somewhere in its mind, an accurate picture of its own situation. That picture does not solve anything. It does not prescribe any course of action. It does not deliver any consoling conclusion. It simply sits there, in the back of the mind, as a quiet companion. Whatever you do with the rest of your life, you do it now in the company of that picture. And the company is strange. Because the picture is not a person, it does not respond. It does not adjust to your moods. It does not soften when you are tired. It is the cosmos as it actually appears to be, indifferent and immense and slowly fading. Living alongside that companion is not always comfortable, but discomfort is not, in itself, a reason to abandon accuracy. Some truths are uncomfortable and remain true and have to be carried regardless. The cosmic picture is one of these, so carry it, or set it down occasionally when it becomes too heavy, and pick it up again later. Either is allowed. The cosmos does not require constant vigilance from you. It will continue whether you are paying attention or not, but know that when you set it down, you are not making it go away. You are only taking a break from looking at it. It is still there, behind the everyday surfaces with all of its voids and expansions and horizons and fades intact. It waits patiently. It has all the time in the universe. And eventually, of course, the time will run out for you, individually. Not because the cosmos will end first, the cosmos will far outlast you, but because the local configuration of matter that constitutes you is itself a temporary arrangement, far briefer even than the temporary structures it observes. The galaxies will outlast you by orders of magnitude. The stars will outlast you. The cosmic web will outlast you. Even the silence that follows the bright chapter will not begin until long after you are no longer in any position to observe its beginning. So your particular relationship with the cosmos is brief, briefer than the briefness of cosmic structures, briefer than the briefness of stars, briefer, even, than the briefness of most planets. You exist for a window, inside a window, inside a window. Your window does not close because the cosmos closes. Your window closes because your particular biology winds down, long before the larger windows reach their own ends. And when your window closes, the cosmos continues in its own much slower way, with the void still growing and the galaxies still drifting and the long fade still patiently underway. There is no version of this picture in which you remain. There is no version in which you watch the long arc unfold. There is no version in which you witness the silence arrive. You will be gone long before any of the dramatic cosmic transitions reach their conclusion. The sun will still be burning when you are no longer here. The Milky Way will still be turning. The voids will still be expanding. None of the large cosmic events you have learned about will occur in your remaining time. You will only ever inhabit this particular early portion of the bright chapter, and then you will not inhabit anything. And the picture you built in your mind, the picture this whole description has been constructing, will end with you. It will not be transferred anywhere. It will not be preserved in some cosmic archive. It will not be lifted out of you into some greater mind. It will simply cease, along with all the other contents of your particular configuration of matter. Other minds will have their own versions of the picture. Some will be more accurate than yours. Some will be less. None of them will be the same picture. Each one will be a private construction, and each one will end with the mind that built it. This is the situation. Cleanly described without softening. A vast, mostly empty universe slowly fading toward silence. A local bright chapter that includes us. A brief individual life within that bright chapter. A mind that can build a partial picture of the whole, and a mind that will end carrying that picture with it. No cosmic memory, no preservation, no appeal, no external witness. Only the cosmos, doing what it does, and the brief observers within it, doing what they do, until they no longer do anything. And the sky throughout all of this remains overhead, not as a comforting presence, not as a hostile one, just as the local interface between you and the rest of the universe, for the time you have, for the brief window in which the cosmos still permits this kind of looking. The sky has been there before you. The sky will be there after you. The light from the sky has crossed distances older than the planet, older than the sun, older in some cases than most of the species that have ever existed on Earth, and it arrives, for an instant, in the eyes of whoever happens to be looking, and then it continues past or is absorbed or is scattered and the moment passes. So the final picture is not a picture of triumph. It is not a picture of meaning. It is not a picture of belonging. It is a picture of a particular kind of small, brief presence inside a particular kind of large, indifferent process. Both are real. Both will continue briefly. The small one will end soon. The large one will continue for spans of time that no number can usefully carry, until even the large one becomes something thin and dispersed and unrecognizable. There is no comfort to extract from this that is not already a kind of lie. There is no consolation that does not, on examination, dissolve. The honest position is to acknowledge what is, and to remain inside the acknowledgement without flinching. The universe is mostly empty. The expansion is accelerating. The horizons are tightening. The stars are aging. The remnants will evaporate. The silence will arrive. The memory of all of this will not be kept. The picture you have built will end with you, and the sky is still there tonight. Above the clouds, above the city lights, above the ceiling between you and the open air, the same sky that has been described in every paragraph above continues to exist. It does not need to be looked at to continue. It does not need to be understood. It does not need to be loved. It simply continues, as it has always continued, indifferent to whether it is or is not attended to, indifferent to whether it is or is not understood, indifferent to whether the creature beneath it survives or does not. Look up, if you can, while you can. Not because looking changes anything, not because the cosmos is improved by the looking, but because for a brief moment, in a brief life, in a brief chapter of a very long process, the looking is one of the things you are still able to do. And after a while you will no longer be able to do it. And after a much longer while, no one will be able to do it from anywhere within the universe that is still bright enough to be seen. The bright chapter will not last. The observers will not last. The structures will not last. The light will not last. The cosmos will continue, dimmer and dimmer, stretched further and further, into a future in which no eye opens, no thought forms, no question is asked, no sky is read. The reading is happening now. The asking is happening now. The thought is forming now. None of it will be happening then. Hold that finally without trying to fix it. The cosmos is what it is. It contains, briefly, you. It will not contain you, or anything like you, for very long. And after you are gone, and after everything you recognize is gone, it will continue, mostly empty and growing emptier, expanding and growing colder, until even its emptiness becomes the only feature left, and the last faint signals fade into a darkness without edge, without center, without anyone left to notice that the darkness has finally become everything there is. That is the universe. That is where you are. That is what is happening above your head, around your planet, beyond every horizon, in every direction, all the time. The voids are real. The fade is real. The silence is approaching. And the sky tonight, the sky that still glitters with the light of distant suns whose photons left them long before you were born, is the last bright surface of a cosmos that is slowly, patiently, irreversibly preparing to become the dark.